You haven't had a single death mark. Definitely on the field. I'm not sure about the roster.
No, I've never brought any death marks whatsoever. Even if I had owned them, which I actually do not, because I've actually not bought any death marks before. I still would not bring them in their current iteration.
Hello, everybody. Glass Half Dead here, and today, finally, I have another the man, the myth, the legend. It's Chuck. Chuck, the Necron player, to be specific. Hi, Chuck. How's it going?
Hey, Andrew, it's great to be on your show. Thanks so much for inviting me.
No, it's really great to have you here. Obviously, I heard about the guy that took Necrons to the top four in LVO. I didn't manage to catch up with you then, unfortunately, but I've managed to get you now that you've kind of managed to reaffirm your your iron or the Necrons aren't made of iron. The necronic alloy, the your iron grip, that you've managed to kind of take over Necrons to take them to the top tables twice, which I'm very impressed by because as someone that's played Necrons myself, I've got to admit I'm surprised you can manage it. So this is, I think Necrons were my first real team. However, this isn't about me. This is about you, Eric. I should probably step out of the spotlight at this point. So tell us, Eric, why Necrons first? That's my real question.
Well, I guess that depends. Do you mean by why Necrons for Kill Team or why Necrons at the very beginning?
Both. Both. I think it's good to get the background.
Okay, certainly. Well, I'll try to keep it as short as possible. So this was back in high school by about 10 years ago. Like back then, I didn't know Warhammer 40K, obviously, and I had seen Games Workshop, their store, and I saw, cool sci-fi armies, Lord of the Rings style esque army, all that stuff. Then right along one of the display case was uh was the fourth edition Necron army, all painted weird. And I was like, whoa, what is that? Are those Terminators? Well, I mean, like the movie Terminator, not the actual Space Marine Terminators. I didn't know that back then.
No,
But
of course.
I was just so enamored by their the Necrons, the robot dead people coming back to life. And then it was just the first army I've ever played. Of course, back in 4th edition, Necrons weren't really the most powerful. Sure, their units can come back from the dead, but the phase-out rules, the fact that they were very point expensive, made them very cumbersome to play with. So I had played Necrons for, say, 4th edition, 5th edition, a bit of 6th edition, and then I kind of dropped out because at the time I actually diverted most of my attention towards Warhammer Fantasy and the Skaven race. Yeah. And then I was pretty much on a very long no 40k hiatus because obviously life was in a way Warhammer Fantasy, which became Age of Sigmar when I dropped, focus on my career. Then one of my friends said, "Hey, what Games Workshop is about to release Kill Team to Warhammer 40k." And at the time, I remember that 4th edition rulebooks had a small mini game that was called Kill Team, and I was thinking, they're making something. They must be making something similar to that. And I was like, I'll come back, have a look, see what it's like. So obviously, I pre-ordered my core rulebook, picked it up, looked through the book, and I really liked the, I guess, the scaled down, nit gritty, squad based warfare. And it goes without saying, I primarily had Necrons, so I picked them up. But over the course of a few months, I would pick up, other groups like Space Marines, Gene Stealer cults, Eldar, and so forth, so forth. And I actually enjoyed Kill Team a lot, just because I didn't need to spend, several $100 to get a game going. I didn't need to spend hours just to play one game. I could get a game in 30 minutes, 45 minutes. It was a lot of fun. And in truth, I've never really thought about playing competitively. Yeah, I actually was content, just playing casually at my local hobby store. And actually, it was on a actually interesting thing. The first day I went to pick up and play Kill Team, that was when I met Eric, which is the Dark Eldar Tau Thousand Suns player, which you had interviewed, I think, previously. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right. By the time this goes live, we will have already heard from Eric, presumably last week. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that was actually where I first met him, and he too was just picking up Kill Team for the first time, and I guess you could say that was the beginning of a budding relationship because we actually live very close to one another, like only a 10 minutes drive or something. So at first we would meet at Games Workshop store every Saturday to play Kill Team and just generally have a blast. I think it was around last November, he told me that there was a tournament in Las Vegas, the LVO tournament, of course. At the time, I really didn't think much of it. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, of course it makes sense. Games Workshop would want to make another tournament competitive scene for one of their new bigger game modes, Kill Team, right? Because obviously it had exploded with popularity. But I didn't think too much about it. As a matter of fact, I still, at that time, I still hadn't thought about competing in the tournament scene for Kill Team. Then Eric had expressed interest. He was like, Chuck, you know what? I kind of want to try, the tournament for Kill Team with my Dark Eldar, and it'd be really great if you could come along because it'd be more fun if I could bring a friend along and we both have fun at the LVO. Because he planned to use he was split between Dark Eldars and Thousand Suns, and obviously at that point we kind of knew what the meta was, if you will. The Death Guard, the Turn-In, Gaunt Spam, the Plasma Guard, so forth, so forth. And he wanted to go there, just for fun, just to see how high he could go on the tournament ladder. He didn't really have any anticipation that, he was going to be the top place in the top four. I myself, mostly because of work, so I wasn't sure I could even make it in the first place. It was around the start of January that I was like, you know what? I think I can make it to the LVO, and I kind of want to see what, this whole big deal about this tournament scene. And sitting down, I really kind of had to think to myself, what army did I want to bring? Because I was very tempted, actually, and I do have the models, actually, for a Tyrannid Gaunt Spam, the meta list. And if I wanted to get the Death Guard armies going up, I could also do that too. But as I was sitting, I was like, yeah, but if this is a tournament scene, I'm pretty sure everyone's going to be bringing a lot of meta armies, top tier armies already. So, and besides, like, it's kind of foolish to assume a guy who's never been to a tournament scene before, could make it to the top. So I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to go for fun. Obviously, I'm going to do my best to win, but I'm going to, just go for fun. And with that executive decision, I decided to bring the first army I've ever played with, which naturally is Necrons.
Gosh,
so that's
so much to
yeah.
unpack there. Let's jump back quickly. When you got Necrons first, you said 4th edition. At that point, were they mindless, cold, space killer Terminators? Or had they already made the lore transition over to kind of pharaohs in space?
Back then,
Hmm.
and you'll pardon me if I quote some of these missions wrong, because back then, like I said, I was a very casual player. So based on what I remembered, they came out in the Games Workshop magazine as kind of like an additional little race you could play before they became their full-fledged own army. I actually still have that old codex book somewhere around there. But back then, Necrons were kind of like this terror in the night, this old Cthulhu robot, race. Something that was incomprehensible. That's just beyond space and time. You didn't know what their backstory was. You didn't know, their motives, only that they were out to purge all, living life. And of course, the Ceton back then was like this mysterious dark gods. Something that's not of the warp, like the Chaos gods, but just something altogether different. And so they definitely had that kind of, what's that word I'm looking for? Old mythos army, coming from the shadows, the dark, in their unknowable technology, just purging away the darkness in flesh. And that back then, actually, the basic Necron warriors was the Space Marine equivalent because they had their Strength 4, Toughness 4, and their 3 up armor save. And their weapon already had an AP of 1. And this was back before you could always wound everything. If there was a toughness higher than toughness or an armor on vehicles that was higher than your weapon strength, you couldn't wound it. But Necrons was the exception because all their weapons would always wound and always light penetrate vehicles on a 6, which made them, well, even their basic Necron warriors could engage the strongest vehicles. Even, they actually could conceivably destroy a land raider back then. And back then, this was of course 7th and 8th edition, where everything now has a toughness instead of an armor value, when for everything can conceivably wound something. Necrons was special in that way. And then of course they were just as expensive.
No, indeed, I remember they were very special in that regard. I even remember and had the very first metal model that you bought along with the White Dwarf, which was actually it was a scarab on a table that had been destroyed, I believe.
Oh
Anyway,
my goodness, I don't think I know that one.
I think it was the first ever Necron model. Or maybe the first ever Necron model was the warrior that you got with the White Dwarf.
Oh,
But
yeah. So I think the ones you're referring to was like I think 2nd edition. Like that was what back when everything was
oh,
pure
okay.
metal. Yeah, the ones I have is more like 3rd, 4th edition, where the basic warriors and scarabs were plastic,
Okay.
but their immortals, the revamped immortals and flayed ones, were still metal.
Right. Okay. Yep. I think I was thinking of their initial concept in second or third, then possibly.
Definitely.
Yeah. Not giving away my age though. Who knows? It could be anything. Uh,
Neither my age as well.
yes.
I hope.
We're all echoes in the warp, really. So, you know, who cares? Who
Not
cares
me.
about
I don't
physical
have a
age?
soul.
Oh, okay.
I'm a soulless Necron machine. I have no soul.
Super. Super. Put that on the CV. You also mentioned that you played a bit of Age of Sigmar. Sorry, Warhammer Fantasy. Very different to Age of Sigmar. Did you make the transition over to Age of Sigmar?
I did not, because I still remember when they first released Age of Sigmar, there was pretty much nothing. It was just basic rules of how to play Age of Sigmar. There was the basic stats to all the pre-existing miniatures and models for Age of Sigmar, and that was it. There was no special rules, there was no race, there was nothing like that. And I thought this was the most poorly executed transition to a different game I had ever seen. And to make things worse, there was no army book, or what was it, battle scribe or battle tome for Skaven. Like, my
Yeah.
goodness. The whole point of me playing Warhammer Fantasy was I can shoot at my own people. I
Of
don't know if you
course,
remember,
yes.
but no, yeah, in Warhammer Fantasy, Skaven was unique in the fact that they were the only race that can actively shoot at their own units that are locked in combat. I mean, because the basic rule was you could not shoot into combat for fear of hitting your own models. Well, Skaven was different. You could actually lock people down with a block of Skaven slaves who literally had the special rule expendable, which meant any of your models can shoot into that combat. And, well, like there's nothing more fun than blowing up your people, but also hoping you can blow up the enemy. That was kind of like, the thing for Skaven, expendable troops, and I enjoyed it tremendously. But in Age of Sigmar, we only had a basic stats, and well, frankly, there was nothing to work with. And like I said before, the release was so poor. I just did not feel any attraction to Age of Sigmar at all. So I actually never played Age of Sigmar, besides maybe one or two introduction game. Kind of like to learn what it was like.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I mean, Skaven just got re-released. Apparently, they're very powerful at the moment. Something to consider.
I've actually heard about it, and I think I will give it a look. But I'm also kind of curious what's going to happen with them in Warcry, if they'll make it in. That is.
I'm very, very curious as well. Certainly, I believe in the recent Warcry video I did, um, there's no mention of Skaven as one of the additional factions, although they are Chaos officially. So maybe they
Ah,
will be like mixed in with some of the other existing war bands. But then that's not very
yeah. I mean, I'm not.
Skaveny.
I'm actually not very. Yeah, I'm actually not very familiar with the Age of Sigmar lore as it stands. But from what I was told, supposedly my Great Horned Rat is the fifth Chaos God, which
Correct.
I can
Yes.
kind of see where they're going, but not a big fan of it. And I yeah, I guess, but technically they are Chaos, so maybe they could make it into Warcraft just because of the fact they're technically, a faction of chaos. But just because how they're not fleshed out or their own, specific warband, I'm not sure if it's going to be what I'm hoping for. So,
No, it does at this point at least seem like it would probably be more like a single model in a warband is happening
Mhm,
to be a storm vermin or something like that. Who
mhm.
knows? And then there was another thing. Yes, so the journey that you described there seems to me to be very archetypal of what a lot of people have found with Kill Team. They played in their youth, but Kill Team has brought them back. Or the other story we hear often is that friends enjoyed 40k and said, "Hey, try Kill Team because it's smaller." And Kill Team seems to be a real draw for people, and that seems to work for you as well.
Yes, that's definitely the case. Just because right now my current lifestyle does not afford me the ability to, focus on building a big army, paint several hundred miniatures, and play games that last 3 to 4 hour long just for one game. And obviously in my youth I would be able to afford that time, but right now, just due to my responsibilities and my jobs, I'm not able to put in as much time as I would like to. Not to mention it's expensive building a army from scratch. Kill Team, you only need 20 models max, and you're good to go. In a 40k or a Age of Sigmar game, I reckon you need at least 40 or 50 models just to start.
Well, actually, not we shouldn't get too sidetracked, but Age of Sigmar actually has a much smaller model count than you might expect these days.
Not if I'm playing Skaven though.
Even with Skaven, it's not as bad as you'd expect, but you are correct. You might well be over 50 or 60 there. Yeah, possible.
Yeah, no. But I do plan on checking out Age of Sigmar if they've really, re-released a proper book for Skaven faction.
I've heard nothing but good things since Age of Sigmar 2.0 released, certainly.
Hmm.
Okay, anyway, we should probably talk about what everybody here is here to listen to. Um, Necrons, you've taken them to the tournament. Before we really dig into anything too specific, how about we start by just hearing what your roster is?
Certainly. Are you curious about the roster for the LVO or the roster for Adepticon?
Let's go with Adepticon, as that's what the thumbnail that I'm going to use for this video is going to be of.
Okay, certainly. So, as you know, Necrons are one of the most diverse and varied kill members of Kill Team, with
Definitely.
so much fascinating combinations you can go with.
Oh, if anything, that was one of the things that turned me off from Necrons. They were simply, it was too diverse, if I'm honest. I looked at them and I was, oh, the flurry, the storm of options that they have actually put me off from them.
My goodness, I know, right? It's like going to an ice cream shop.
Hmm.
Okay, but sarcasm aside, though, in all honesty, building a Necron list is dead simple. If we're being honest, they're warriors, only one weapon option. Flayed ones, one weapon option. Deathmark, one weapon option, and only the Immortals have two weapon options: the Gauss Blaster and the Tesla Carbine. And unfortunately, in my view, the Tesla Carbine simply cannot hold a candle to the tried and true Gauss Blaster. So, and the Death Mark, I feel, were just not worth their salt, so to speak. So it was really just a choice between Immortals, Warriors, and Flayed ones. So my list roster for the Adepticon is as follows, and I actually have it in front of me right now. I went with 6 Immortals, one of which was a leader, and one of which is a comms officer. I went with 4 Warriors, with no specialist, but in hindsight, I felt like I should have made one of them a comms officer. And then for the rest, I filled it out with 10 Flayed ones: a leader, a combat, a zealot, and a veteran. And that is my 20 list. Dead simple, straightforward.
Yes, as you said, there are a total of 5 options total throughout the entire data sheets there. Yeah, and okay, so let's talk about death marks. You in both LVO and now in Adepticon, you haven't had a single death mark. Definitely on the field. I'm not sure about the roster.
No, I've never brought any death marks whatsoever. Even if I had owned them, which I actually do not, because I've actually not bought any death marks before, I still would not bring them in their current iteration.
Interesting. So, I think anybody that has seen any of your posts on Reddit or anything probably already knows why, as you have explained quite extensively your reasoning behind this. But do you want to explain why no death marks? Because certainly when Kill Team was very fresh, like the first month, 2 months tops,
Oh
whenever
yes.
Necrons were mentioned, death marks were always in the mix. It was kind of assumed like a standard list would actually be 2 death marks. Now, obviously, this was partly uh, beginner's folly, perhaps, and we have learned since then. But do you want to explain why?
Certainly. So, one thing people like to look at Deathmark is because, well, first things first, they're 1 point cheaper than Immortals. Not that it makes too big of a difference, but they are slightly cheaper. What really draws them in is the fact that their Synaptic Disintegrator is a rapid fire 1, strength 4, but more importantly, does not suffer penalty hit rolls for long range. This means that theoretically, whoever you are shooting at, assuming they're obscured, which usually they are, at long range, we'll be hitting on 4s. And then, of course, short range, you'll be hitting on 4s at a short target, but you'll be shooting twice. Obviously, it goes without saying that Synaptic Disintegrator is the Necron's version of a sniper rifle, where most other faction sniper rifles, they're usually heavy 1. So this means that they can only shoot once, and they must not move. Otherwise, if they move, they suffer an additional penalty to their shooting. Whereas Necrons, once they reach rapid fire range, they can shoot twice. And obviously, that goes well. It's pretty amazing. Not to mention, if you roll a unmodified, a 6 to wound, they would suffer a mortal wound, and everybody loves mortal wounds.
They are amazing.
So,
Yes.
oh yes, definitely. Now, as to why I don't feel a death mark is worth it, is because they're inconsistent. They're like it's like buying a lottery ticket and hoping it will pay off your house, pay off your retirement. Because I've seen this happen very often. Even when I was playing, narrative before I went into the tournament scene, this was actually particularly most common with another player at the store who played Eldar. He would like to bring 2 Eldar Rangers. So, they had their sniper rifle. It's a heavy 1, strength 4, 6 up to wound would give a mortal wound, and they had their version of the camel cloak, so it was an additional -1 to hit them. I would pretty much need 6s in order to hit them, 5s on a good day. But the thing was, sitting back, I realized all I'm really being shot at is a long-range bolt gun. Because the fella still needed to roll a 6 to wound. If he gave them a demo specialist, 5 up to wound if I'm obscured, to trigger that mortal wound. But more often than not, I've never seen it happen. I have gone through entire games where a person who brought a sniper rifle, whether it's the Scout sniper rifle, Eldar sniper rifle, the Synaptic Disintegrator, they would never score a single mortal wound. And therefore, in all practicality, I was really just being shot at by a bolt gun, and I was like, that doesn't sound very threatening. Because if you look at their gun at their base, assuming you take away the fact that, on a 6 up they cause mortal wound, it's really just a bolt gun. Now compare that to the other to their other weapons carried by, say, the Warriors, their Gauss Flayer. Rapid fire 1, still strength 4, but AP 1. Even just an AP1 can bring a bit more consistency against, armor save 4, armor save 5 people, even against Space Marines. And then it goes without saying, an Immortal's Gauss Blaster at strength 5 AP2 hits far harder and far easier than a strength 4 AP nothing sniper rifle shot. And I could and it's just that the death mark doesn't really bring anything onto the battlefield that an Immortal or even a Warrior can do. Because yeah, besides the fact that they don't suffer long range penalty, so what? I don't suffer a long range penalty on a bolt gun shot. Doesn't really impress me. I would much rather spend that 1 extra point and get my Immortal who can, who shoots just as well as a Synaptic Disintegrator and, do a strength 5 AB2. Because one thing also important to note is that Kill Team is a very small battlefield. It's like, what was it again? 30 inches to 22 inches, I think, was it?
Something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. That's a very, very small battlefield in comparison to your usual 40k games. Generally speaking, on the first turn alone, you could most likely get your people within rapid fire range. Like this is not a board. This is not 40k where you've got like what 6 foot of distance, and anybody with a long range gun has a great advantage. There was nothing to that. So and it's not like this fellow is an actual sniper. He's still limited to his 24-inch range on his synaptic disintegrator. So that meant beyond the 12-inch, he's still shooting at long range. And while there's no penalty, once again we go back to the problem. His gun really isn't that powerful unless you can get him to roll 6 up to wound every time. Unlikely, but yes, it's too much of a lottery ticket. And actually, fun fact: this also goes back to what I've observed when I'm playing with Eric once more, because he's my go-to buddy when we figure out our tournament rules and strategies. He played Thousand Suns, and he would, of course, bring the Icon of Flame. Now, to those who don't know what an Icon of Flame is, it is during the psychic phase, the closest enemy model within 12 inches, no line of sight required, will suffer a mortal wound on a 6+. Now, goes while saying this sounds amazing because he doesn't need to see anyone. He could technically hide behind cover all day, and you think mortal wounds will be flying around. Not the case. We must have played over 30 games with him bringing that Icon of Flame and him rolling for that Icon of Flame every time. I can only count one time the Icon of Flame has ever popped off, and it only dealt me a flesh wound too. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
Icon of Flame is well, anything 6 up is a gamble, but the Icon of Flame
exactly.
exceptionally so because of course you can't tactically re-roll it.
Exactly. So once again, going back to the death mark. So I'm dealing with a fellow who, well, first off, needs to land his shots against an obscure target. Then he needs to roll to wound, and then if I'm lucky, he will cause a mortal wound. But that has never been the case. Between the much more consistent immortal and a very much inconsistent, and at his base a very mediocre shooter, death mark. Between the two, the Gauss Blaster is just far more superior, far more competent for their points worth.
Yes. Also, as you are probably about to point out, it's only a single point difference, and if you just look at it from that and nothing else, you're paying 1 point to increase the strength of your gun by 1 to 5 and give it -2 AP, which is phenomenal value, isn't it?
Exactly. And so at the end of the day, I never pick a death mark. Maybe in a narrative, for fun, casual playing game, I might pick a death mark or one, because admittedly, the death mark is the only model in the entire Necron army that can take the scout and the sniper, which I feel is a bit of a shame.
Yes, although the sniper does make a lot of sense thematically.
No, that it does. That it does.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, I mean, I don't think you really had to sell me on the death mark thing. I've already gone into it having read what you said previously and agree that a death mark, when you just put it next to an immortal, doesn't really make sense. Sadly,
Mhm.
sadly, sadly.
Very sadly,
Yeah,
I feel like if they had some other surplus, special ability unique to the death mark, I feel like there might have been more argument for them.
sure, sure. I mean, I don't know if you know, but in main 40k, uh, the death marks there have an ability that effectively allow them to deep strike 9 inches away when an enemy deep strikes in, obviously making them an amazing headhunter.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't know what the current edition of Deathmark can do, but when they were first revamped into their kind of out of space Egyptian, I remember seeing the Deathmark. Not only did they have that ability, they could also mark a unit. And whenever they shot at that particular unit that they marked for the entire battlefield, they would get to reroll to wounds. And I found them that in that matter, they were actually pretty powerful. I don't know if they still have that ability in the recent reiteration, but I don't think so.
I can't remember. But if there had been some twist like that on them, then potentially they'd have been valid. But yeah, 1 point for an infinitely
Hmm.
better gun is very hard to argue against.
Exactly.
Another thing that people say on Reddit, and that's why if anybody wonders, by the way, why I keep saying people on Reddit say this, that's because Reddit is where I go to hang around talking about Kill Team when I'm at work, because that's a site I can access at work, but I can't access Facebook, which seems to be where most other people go. So, Reddit, a lot of people on there said, again, this is before you had done LVO, there's
Hmm.
no point taking warriors. You shouldn't even have them in your roster. You have four, and one of them's a leader. Do you want to explain why they are so wrong?
I can see why they would think that a warrior is not something you should ever bring. I mean, because Necrons are already a very expensive model to bring on the field in general. Like if you put it in a comparison, like a Necron warrior costs as much as a Space Marine. Now they have a better one AP on their gun, but consequently they have a slightly less better armor save at a 4 up. Not to mention they only move 5 inches. Granted, there's reanimation protocol, but all Necrons have it. So I can see where they're going on because you might as well just, as they say, go the whole way, grab an immortal, strength 5, AB2, whatever they touch is going to go through, and you have a very good chance of killing them. Now, the reason I bring Necron warriors is because I want to, if I can, I'd like to save points to bring on flayed ones, which I'm sure you've noticed by my roster. I have quite a bunch of them.
10, one could say. 10 of them.
Yes, so quite a bit indeed. And honest, and in my mindset, when I was crafting this roster, both for the LVO and Adepticon, I was really thinking about essentially who I would be facing against and what would be the most efficient way to deal with them. Take, for instance, a Space Marine. If I was going up against any Space Marine equivalent, like generic Space Marine, Grey Knights, or Death Watch, strength, toughness 4, armor save 3 up, goes without saying, I should always bring Immortals. Strength 5, AP2 will make short work of them. And not to mention the 3 up save is always nice. However, as I was, just going with the Immortal only list, what I found was that when I went against any other army that wasn't a Space Marine, for instance, the Eldar, the Gene Stealer cults, the Tau even, the Plasma Guardsman, I find that, well, I don't quite have enough bodies to deal with them. And additionally, I find that the surplus firepower was kind of wasted. Because if I was shooting at a Scion or a Guardsman from an Imperial Guard army, what is the real tangible difference between a Strength 4 AP1 with a Strength 5 AP2? Right? I mean, a Strength 4 will the Necron Warriors shoot as well as an Immortal, 3 up to hit. So a Strength 4 against a Toughness 3 is still wounding on 3s. A Strength 5 against a Toughness 3 was still wounding on 3s. Sure, my Immortal might completely negate a basic Imperial Guard's 5-up armor save or render a Scion's 4-up armor save to a 6-up. But a Necron Warrior at an AP1 shot still turns a 5-up to a 6-up, which is, unless he's very lucky, he's probably not going to make that armor save anyway. And so the more I thought about it, I was like, I can, and actually the side benefit from, spending on Necron Warriors instead of Immortals is that because I'm saving up on that 4 points difference, I can actually, if I do use enough of it, I can actually bring on more flayed ones. Because a Necron kill team, their primary strength is in strong, consistent shooting. The flayed ones, sure, 3 attacks, rerolling failed wounds, but they're really not a combat specialist per se. They're not like, say, a Death Watch Space Marine with a storm shield and a power maul, like super tough. Neither do they have any APs on their attack. Flayed ones, I view them as tar pits, and the more of those people that I can bring onto the battlefield, the better. So you'll notice in some of my Adepticon rosters, my fight off, I would bring 2 Immortals, 3 Warriors, and 3 flayed ones. Because unfortunately, Necrons are an elite army. This means that they have less bodies to work with, less objectives they can hold, less quantity of firepower they can put out. Any means to offset that is a good thing. unless I am facing against another, elite army like Thousand Suns, Plague Marines. In which case, I'm better off sticking with the All Immortals. I think people keep saying you never bring Necro Warrior because they're kind of, blindsided by the far superior Immortal when they don't consider, cost efficiency.
Sure. Yes. No, I think you're right. I think most people think they see the 12 points and they see a -1 to their save. It's a 4 up instead of a 3 up and the worst gun, and they're like, well, I'm going to spend the 4 points. Obviously, take the better model. But something that we are learning very quickly is that you need bodies on the board.
Yes, and especially as an elite arm, well, technically an elite army, any extra body you can squeeze onto the battlefield is literally a difference between winning and losing an objective.
Yes, absolutely. Were those kind of your two default lists then? The three warriors, two immortals, three flayed ones, as kind of I need bodies, I'm against a horde, I don't need the higher strength and AP. And then if you're against an elite army, the five immortals, two flayed ones. Were those kind of your two defaults, really?
Yes, those were kind of my default list. If you had looked at my previous LVO, I had made it in such a way that I could actually bring an entire team of warriors if I felt like I knew I was going up against nothing but a T3 army, toughness 3 army, and the armor penetration wasn't as important as rather the quantity of shooting.
Yes, of course. If you're going up against, for example, Tyrannid Spam, Hormagaunts, T3, 6 up save, you gain literally nothing by taking an immortal against shooting on that. Yeah.
And actually, in hindsight, I've learned you gain nothing by bringing a lot of warriors either.
Oh, right. Okay. So I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later.
Certainly.
Okay. So your roster is obviously, by merit of Necrons not really having any options, pretty simple to grasp. And you've kind of just told us there. So is that how you approach building your list and then combining it into a roster? You think, I know that I'm going to have to face elites. I know that I'm going to have to face hordes. How can I do that?
Yeah, actually, that's one of the blessing in disguise with the Necron is because they are so simple to put a list together. You really don't need to think much about your guys. You're not. Let's say if you were a Death Watch player, obviously you have so much options. Like you're literally drowning in options between taking a frag cannon or an furnace heavy bolter, or maybe you want a storm shoot with a power maul. But what if I take a power sword instead, and so forth and so forth. With a Necron, it's very simple. Basic shooting, elite killing shooting, your close combat option, and well, we don't consider the death watch, so it's really just 3 options. So then,
Although
really,
there
oh
is, and we have to cover it. I'm sorry, but we have to cover it. Tesla.
yes,
Do
that is
you
very
want
true.
to tell us why you don't have any Tesla on the roster at all?
It's literally the same reasoning as with the Death Mark. They are underperforming in their comparison to the Gauss Blaster. Now, originally, this was before the errata. If you could theoretically, with a comms officer, because this is for the people who don't know what a Tesla carbine is, 24-inch, assault 2, strength 5, AP nothing, damage 1, and on a hit roll of a 6, the weapon causes 3 hits. So it goes without saying that this weapon is not made for armor penetration, but rather quantity of hits.
Oh, just to quickly
Originally,
point
oh,
out for anyone thinking about that, it's 3 hits on the target that you have hit. It's not
yes.
3 hits that you can then spread among the horde, which would arguably change the maths possibly, but it's 3 hits on that target. Sorry, continue.
Yes, no, actually, that is very important. Actually, that leads to another one of my points as well. I'll get to that real soon. But essentially, so looking at the weapon at its base, Assault 2, this means that a usually very slow Immortal with only a 5-inch movement could advance and still shoot. Sounds nice. However, you can see the just by its base stats alone, no AP means if I threw this against a Space Marine, most likely he would just laugh at me unless I could roll a 6 plus to proc its ability. Now, before the errata, a comms officer could, bless a Tesla Carbine Immortal, and the weapon would proc on a 5 plus instead of a 6 plus. But in the errata, they changed it so that it has to be an unmodified hit roll of a 6, resulting in a complete nerf to this weapon. So not only do you have a weapon that has no armor penetration, you're hoping that it does, that it procs on the hit to cost 3 hits. And these hits cannot be spread around. So it's not even a good anti-horde army because now you can't even spread these hits should you happen to roll a 6 up. And so you run into the problem of where in a tournament list, you're limited to 20 men you can bring. If I was to bring both Gauss Blasters and Tesla Carbines, I would need the equivalent leaders and comms and the full amount of list to have both, and that just takes up too much space. Now, if you were still of the belief that you did not need Necron warriors or flayed ones that much, then this probably would not seem like a challenge to you. But as I've mentioned beforehand, that's not the case. So really, all in all, the Tesla Carbine brings nothing to the battlefield that a Gauss Blaster cannot do consistently and superiorly, just like the Synaptic Disintegrator.
Yes. Sad, but yes, I think everyone is kind of agreed on that point, mainly
Mm-hmm.
because it is luckily something that we can very easily math hammer out. We could just put some
Mm-hmm.
numbers into a spreadsheet and say, oh yeah, actually, the only instance that a Tesla carbine is actually more effective, which it will only be on one turn of the game, is in this very specific scenario, and it's too niche
Exactly.
to matter.
Yes, and honestly, I think if for whatever reason an Immortal with a Tesla Carbine was cheaper than an Immortal with a Gauss Blaster, then actually I could argue that you might want to bring Tesla Carbine instead, just for those extra bodies. But since that's not the case, well,
Well, I mean, it's an interesting thought experiment. If you could fill up a roster of 5 immortals and 2 flayed ones, or a roster of 6 immortals with Tesla carbines and 2 flayed ones, would you do it?
6 or even 7, depending that would of course depend on how cheap they are.
Indeed,
Let's
yes.
assume, for instance, let's say an Immortal with Tesla Carbine was only 14 points instead of 6. You could potentially squeeze in an extra Immortal or even an extra flayed one or two. In that case, I would actually sit back and I might actually bring them against a low armor save army that I'm facing against. But of course, it's up in the air.
Yes, bit of a moot point at this stage. Yes. Sorry, I completely sidetracked you with the Tesla there. We had to talk about it, so
Of course.
we've gotten that out of the way. We've gotten the death marks out of the way. Is there anything else you kind of consider when doing a roster, or is that pretty much it? Because as we've said, there's not really many options, are
Well,
there?
honestly, that's pretty much it. I mean, for a Necron army, it's very simple to write your roster simply because you really only have 3 real options. So really, it's just a matter. And if you just do the math hammer yourself, you know that at 100 points, you can only bring 6 Immortals. At 100 points, you can only bring 8 Warriors, assuming you wanted to only bring, the maximum amount of one particular unit. And at 100 points, you can only bring 10 Flayed Ones. With that as your option, it really just becomes a very small juggling act as to think, do I want slightly more flayed ones, or do I want slightly more warriors?
Indeed, yes. Certainly when I was first into Necrons, I think one of the advantages of them, and this isn't to disparage you in any way, is that they're a great starter army.
Oh,
Um,
certainly, yes.
because there's
Very
no
easy to play.
options. You buy 2 boxes and you have access to every option they have, assuming that you're willing to convert some warriors into flayed ones, which is simple enough. And it's not confusing and scary. It's very simple. It's very understandable. Certainly, I mean, I don't. You possibly don't think of these things in the same way that I do, because obviously I'm always thinking about it for my channel. What might I promote to a new player? I normally go Death Watch, Harlequins, or Grey Knights, just because they're all single box purchases. but they all have a
Hmm.
lot of options. Like I could totally understand how it's a touch overwhelming for someone.
Yes, I guess it really goes down to your flavor, or rather it's financial, because it goes without saying, like you said, the Grey Knights, the Harlequins, financially it is so much easier to pick them as your starter set. But if you're thinking about tactics, flexibility wise, and people would say pick a Death Watch or Space Marines and so forth, and Plague Marines, of course.
Well, yes, I mean obviously with that first strike set, Plague Marines and actually in not Intercessors, Primaris, Adeptus
Yep,
Astartes
yep.
are all great options. All great options,
Hmm.
definitely. I always forget about recommending the first strike box. I don't know why. I think it's because I personally don't like Death Guard or Adeptus Astartes. So I just
Yeah. I
blank it
mean,
out.
Death Guard are okay, but their place in how they fitted into the kill team has made me dislike them. Though not so much that I wouldn't play them, but I rather dislike their current place in tournament scene, so to speak.
Yes, even Elliot was saying. Obviously, I haven't posted the videos of the interview with him yet, but obviously it's fresh on my mind because I just spoke to him yesterday. And
Hmm.
he was saying he's probably done with Death Guard. Like, don't get me
Hmm.
wrong, he enjoyed wiping the floor with everyone, uh, but he's done. I came away with the impression that he wasn't overly satisfied with the games. Happy he won, but he did exactly the same tactic against everyone and it worked.
Yeah, yeah, and I don't know if you want to go into a tangent regarding the Death Guard, because I know it's technically Necron hour right now, but certainly it's
Sure.
just so easy to win them. They're just such a it's like a sledgehammer, using a sledgehammer to every result, and it just works.
Yeah, yeah, it's like all you need is a normal hammer to hammer in that nail, but instead you use the sledgehammer and take out the wall. But technically, the nail is also,
Yes,
yeah,
not the best analogy, but I can almost go into a spiel about Death Guard and their place, but I probably should not.
it's yeah. I suspect that once I've kind of done the roundup of Adepticon and Warhammer World, if that spawns any interviews as well, um, I suspect that I will continue this interview series because we now don't really have. Oh no, we've got BAO soon. But at some point, I hope to be bringing people on to discuss the more meta things, the more abstract things. And it will probably be not just me, I'll be more a moderator. And like I might get
Hmm.
you and Eric on or something, or you
Oh,
and
certainly.
Elliot, and almost have you two debate the point. You
Oh
know,
yeah, no. Elliot is like, definitely not to disparage Elliot for playing Death Guard, because obviously the point of tournaments is that you want to win. Obviously, if you want to
completely.
win something, you don't bring the worst thing; you bring the best thing. It just so happens that Tyranids and Death Guard are the best thing. It's almost like if you're going to run a marathon, you're trying to win, but you decide, no, you know what? I'm going to put on weights because I'm going to be I don't want to be meta. While everyone running without with no weights on, going to put weights on. Like,
Exactly. It would
kind of.
be like taking Grey Knights to a tournament.
Exactly. And me taking Necrons is kind of like me putting weights on myself. But to be fair, I did not expect to actually do as well as I did.
But you've managed to do it twice. So, a quick side again, we're not going to get into the next thing. We're going to dive into your games quite deeply soon. But before we do that, are you excited for Elites?
Ooh.
Hmm.
Just because of the lack of information that has come out so far, I am of a mixed feeling.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Yes. Okay. So when I first heard about Elites coming out, I was like, yes, maybe Necrons can get more options. Lich Guards, Praetorians, and all the other fancy stuff. Maybe I can even bring a Canotech Spider or a Canotech Wraith, because I still have the old school metal version of them. Yeah. So I thought
I've
that'd be
got
a
to
great option.
say, the new Wraith models, I think are stellar. I think they're really lovely
Oh,
models.
no doubt about it. The only new Necron models I did not like was the flayed one, because it
Oh, they're
looks like they're
terrible.
hipster. They look like hipster flayed ones than proper flayed ones. But anyway, I sidetracked. So at first I was like, yeah, maybe Necrons will finally get something interesting. But then of course I keep getting contrary news from the grapevines, so to speak. At first I heard it was going to be 150 points with elites, but you're still limited to 20 people. I thought, okay, yeah, this will prevent, horde armies from not only having the horde, but also having the elite in the horde, which would only exacerbate the problem. But then at the same, then I heard it was like only 125 points, but you can take up to 30. I was like, huh? That didn't make any sense. Then it was like it was all these weird disparaging information, and I'm not sure which one's actually real or which ones people are just kind of just tossing into the wind for giggles. And so thinking back and have a look, and we've actually discussed, me and Eric, we've actually talked about this in lengths, and I think we both agree that elites, as long as the roster is still limited at 20, even if they pump up the build up the maximum points to say 125 or 150, on a whole, it should benefit more elite armies more than it benefits pre-existing horde armies. Because elites would then be able to bring an extra 1 or 2 models, maybe even bring up a tough elite like my Eric, who was thinking about bringing a Terminator Sorcerer. Because now he has 2 sorcerers he can play with, still only 1 psychic shot a turn, but now he doesn't have to worry about all his psychic powers being limited to 1 model, for
He
instance.
actually mentioned that in his interview. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're agreed on that. And then a horde army, say a Tyranid, who usually wants 1 warriors and 19 gods, the stereotypical spam list. He might be able to upgrade, one of his gods into a lictor or into another warrior, but it wouldn't be so dramatic. But it wouldn't be. He would still be limited to 20 bodies, which is already the pre-existing challenge. So it's kind of a mixed bag. Certainly, if they allow elites into tournaments and they increase the point limit to say 125 or 150 to include that, it would definitely actually I think it would throw the entire meta for a spin. But until they have more information, I'm afraid I don't have a properly informed decision or opinion about elites. But I am very excited.
Yes. No. To be clear, we know nothing. We are speculating entirely. I think I don't know who it was that kind of spun out the 150 points idea. I suspect it was based on the fact that obviously in the Elite trailer we saw that you could run Custodes, and Custodes are obviously very expensive models. And if you could run 5,
Actually, yes.
then
Well, I
that's
guess it's possible though that they might lower the point cost for custodies
that
because
would be the
Death Guard they
assumption.
lowered their points from 18 to 14, which is
Yes.
dramatic.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to do it. That's why I said I have a mixed feeling because Custodes, if they do that for the Custodes, they might be the new Death Guard in the meta.
Possibly, possibly. I mean, for example,
Mm-hmm.
on the points adjustment side, I think that lictors in 40k are like 80 points. So
Yep,
yeah, so
definitely.
dropping points is entirely within the realms of possibility.
Yes,
Um,
and it might be a little imbalanced just because. But once again, we need to see what they actually do before I make an official opinion. Right now, I'm just
exactly.
excited to hear.
Yes, I am equally excited. I think the latest, again, not even rumor, just rumblings that I've heard are that actually elites, so unlike commanders, elites is going to be subsumed within the competitive scene. Certainly at not Nova, not LVO, no Nova. Certainly at Nova, they are going to allow elites, assuming it's out by then. We assume it will be.
Oh,
Um,
interesting. And we consider that ANOVA is going to be the Kill Team Arena maps. That's
Indeed.
definitely going to throw everything for a loop. I think personally, I actually think that's a poor decision.
Well, hold on now. There's another
Yep.
factor. The other
Ooh.
factor is we have also heard from the same guy. So this is Mike Brandt, the guy
Okay.
that is running Nova and was
Hmm.
also a playtester for Kill Team. So basically, we just
Ah,
assume that
I would have
everything
loved to have
he
been a
says is
playtester.
gospel. Um,
Yep.
Obviously, nothing he says is official from GW, and he runs his own tournament. So how he wants to run it, he can
Yep.
do whatever he wants. And if GW
Hmm.
doesn't want to run it the same way, that's totally fine. But we have
Hmm.
also heard him say separately to that, so he didn't link the two statements at all, but he said separately to that that he doesn't see why Kill Team would go above 100 points competitively.
Hmm. Certainly. So I can. So if it's still at 100 points, then actually I think it you could include elite because then the elite becomes too elite, and actually might depending on I guess the mission. Ooh, that's a lot to think about,
It's
admittedly.
yeah. I mean, again, all speculation, especially since we don't even know points cost. We don't know really what's happening. But
Oh, yes, certainly.
for the elite armies, we can assume, I think, quite safely that a Terminator is obviously going to cost more than a Scout, right? That
Oh,
makes
yes, for sure.
sense. So, considering how important bodies on the board are, can
Hmm.
you really justify spending, let's say, 35 points maybe on a Terminator?
You can in arena, because
Okay.
in arena everything is a very tight corridor. It's actually worked against horde. Just based on the few times I've played it so far, I haven't gone into as much depth as I could, but I can definitely tell you a horde struggles getting moving through those corridors, especially if the enemy opponent army has gotten there ahead of you and kind of cordoned off either by keeping the door closed or just using one and just two bodies to block. And so I can imagine a player could say, I'm bringing a Terminator. He's just going to bum rush advance to a corridor, sit there, and no one's going to charge past him because he's very tough. You know, 2 up armor save, 5 up invuln save, 2 wounds. Like, unless you're bringing a big gun against him or a really multi damaging Thunderhammer, I don't see how a basic Gaunt or a Guardsman or even a Space Marine is going to bulge him, so to speak. So I can see a situation like that happening. But once
Okay.
again, too early to tell.
No, indeed. Entirely speculation. But yes, I too am excited. And actually, one of the reasons I no longer play Necrons, despite having a full painted kill team of them, is that I hate to say it, but I think they're a bit boring. With the list options, they don't do much for me thematically. If suddenly we can put in, I'm just going to say some random words: Lichguard, Praetorians, Scarabs, Canoptic Spiders, Wraiths. Suddenly, I may very well be interested in Necrons again.
Indeed, and actually, that was one of the primary challenge playing Necrons. Was it was very, very boring. Like they really don't have much going for them. Like it's so boring that I'm actually thinking about trying to, I guess, kit bash a whole new Necron kill team. You know, just trying to make it more interesting to look at. Because right now it's
Oh,
just
nice.
skeletons marching, shooting. I'm trying to think. You know, like skeletal, feudal Japanese warriors. So like
Oh,
the
nice.
warrior Necron warriors could be archers. The
Oh,
flay ones could be samurai with necroblades. Just right now, it's kind of just in the air. I'm not really thinking too hard about it. But it's still a long while till August. Maybe I could get something done.
you've got time. Yeah. Are you
I've got
thinking
time.
you'd use the base model of a Necron, or you'd actually just go all out and proxy the whole thing, find a cool looking
Oh
skeleton, put
no, no.
some Oriental armor on,
I still want Necrons as a base. So
okay,
the Necron warriors or the
and
Immortals.
then
But the
build
thing
up
is, I
around
kind
them?
of want this. I want to kind of build around it so that they be a bit more, feudal Japan robots. So they look much cooler, right?
I'm all for it. I'd love to see those conversions, definitely. I'm a big
Definitely.
fan of modeling conversions, proxies, etc. Because I do a lot
I'm very
myself.
junior when it comes to painting and conversion. So this will be a interesting project if I get it, if I get that ball rolling. Because right now I still haven't quite located the bits I feel that I need to make it, well, easier for me, if you will.
Yeah, unfortunately, if you're, I mean, obviously you're not, but if you are trying to keep things all GW, they don't really do that aesthetic these days, which is a
No, it's
real shame.
very challenging. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only possible thing, and I don't know the model range too well, would be Lord of the Rings. Not Cathay, that's fantasy.
I mean, the
But
archers would be really easy. You just need to use the those sigmar guys. They have a sigmar unit. I don't know what their name is, but they have like these
yeah,
big bows, the
I know the type.
crossbows. Like
Yeah,
that one's easy enough.
yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah, like I said, it's just something on the grapevine to think about right now.
okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Anyway, we got completely sidetracked in that tangent. I can hardly even remember what it was about. Oh, elites, right. I think it's been an hour. Blimey. We
Mhm.
may as well dive into your games. Give us your tactical noose. Tell us how to really win with Necrons, and just your thoughts in general.
Okay, so
Oh, actually,
let me
sorry.
just.
I'm gonna
Oh, okay.
jump in again. How many pods did you play in the end? Four,
I
five?
played in four pots total. So Friday and Saturday, both the morning and the afternoon. So a total of
Okay.
four pots.
And
And I
how many
won.
did you win?
I won two of them.
Okay. So you ended up with
Yeah.
two medals.
Yes. Unlike my friend Eric, which I'm sure he told you, he won three medals with all the Tau, the Dark Eldar, and the Thousand Suns. I'm very
Yes.
proud of him for that.
Yes, yeah, he did a really good job there. Yeah, I mean, you could almost argue, the fact that he managed to do it with different teams is only a credit to him. Yeah.
Yes, I've actually thought about bringing Eldar too, but I couldn't get them painted in time.
Oh, you wanted to kind of tread in Michael's footsteps, clearly.
Uh, I know. Actually, no. I felt the thing was at LVO, I was kind of split between Eldar and Necrons. I'll admit. The only reason I wasn't too strongly invested in Eldar was because I was having a trouble finding the bits or a proper conversion for the Eldar flamers and fusion guns. And it was a lack of those two that I decided not to bring, or not to even bother trying Eldar, just because until I found those bits, it's difficult. Because you're kind of playing at half strength if you don't have those guns for the Eldar.
Yes, indeed. No, oh yeah, no, completely. Those, yeah, they're dirt cheap fusion guns. Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, before we jump into the games, one quick question. I think the answer's probably pretty obvious. How do you prep for a tournament?
I play a lot.
Yeah. Do you ever play against yourself, or because you have Eric so close, you just play against him, or do you
I
play
have
against other
Eric very
people as
close.
well?
Nope, nope. I play strictly with Eric when it comes to the tournament scene. Because A, it's convenient. B, he's thinking tactically. Like I like to think Eric as kind of being the opposite of me. I'm a very, I guess, intuitive, instinctive player. I don't really write things down per se. It's I just use my gut senses. I use my experience. I kind of keep over, try this strategy, try that strategy. Eric is very logical, methodical in his way. Like if I don't know if Eric has told you this, but he writes a lot of things down. He plans his steps accordingly. He does the mathematical odds of making, say, a 10-inch charge, an 8-inch charge with this model. What if this model had reroll? What if this model got a +1, and so forth, so forth. He's very methodical about his planning, and I'm sure you can see it bear fruit in this tournament since he won with three different armies. He's very methodical. So I like to play off of him as well because he definitely reminds me of the odds. He reminds me of what should be a logical solution to a social path. I kind of provide him with a more gut feeling, like horizontal, vertical thinking kind of deal. So he's definitely one of my favorite people to be play with, play against, and just run ideas off.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if I had somebody that was, winning tournaments with three different factions, I guess you don't really need to play other people, do you?
No, and it's quite interesting too because we both own a lot of different factions. I have Space Marine, Gene Stealer Cult. I have Orcs. I have oh shoot, what else do I have? I have a lot of different armies. I think the only people I really don't have is the Harlequins, the Death Guard, the Thousand Suns, and the Death Watch. Yes, but I just proxy those. In truth, I've played with him. I've played every army. He's played every army, just so we can kind of get an idea of what it feels like to play with and play against.
And just to clarify, going back to the start of the conversation there, have you picked all of these up since getting back into Kill Team, or are these old models?
Some of these are old models that I had, bits lying around because, as you go through 40K, you just happen to acquire a set of Imperial Guards and you're not sure what to do with them because you can't play an army with just 10 models.
But now you
So a lot
can.
of them,
Yeah.
exactly, a lot of them has just been kind of just, bits and bits here, stuff there that you just collect over the years, so to speak.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, because your kind of collection there of multiple different armies sounds like what I've done, and I think what a lot of people have done, because we all have a problem and we need to stop buying stuff, but we can't.
Yes, I have that problem still,
Yeah.
but I aim to buy secondhand so that because I know I'm not a great painter or a great modeler, so I don't need, fresh new, plastic crack off the seams, and
I just love filing down mold lines, so I like to get it fresh. What can I say?
ah, I respect that. I respect that.
You should not. Your games. We know how you practice, we know your thought process, we know your roster. We know that you've won two of your pods.
Hmm.
Tell us how.
I showed up, I deployed my guys, and I defeated the enemy. The
Excellent.
end.
It's been lovely talking to you. See you
Yes, thank you
later.
so much for your time. Have a good day.
Okay. So
Okay, now
break it down.
let's
Break
get
it
to
down.
the proper answer. Okay, so so in order to get the Necrons ready, the good thing about Necrons is that because your army is so simple, all I need to do from that point on, really, I actually didn't put a lot of time into the Necrons. I put more time into learning every other army, so to speak, learning what they do, what they play like. As a matter of fact, actually for LVO, for every 5 games I played with Eric in practice, only one of them were Necron. Every other time I played against him, it was using, say, proxy death guards, chaos cultist spam, tyrannids, Eldar, so forth, so forth. Because because as you said before, the Necrons are a boring, simple army to play with. They have nothing special. There's nothing that'll jump out of the woodwork and surprise you. There's nothing you will forget. For instance, when Eric was still learning how to play his Dark Eldar for LVO, he kept forgetting his combat drugs. So his witches would be running into combat, and he would forget, oh, that's right, I forgot combat drugs, at turn 4. And it's like, obviously we can't go back, but no, it's like, there's not a lot of rules to them. So really, at that point, then it becomes understanding what are the strengths and weaknesses of other armies. Only by learning what other armies can do can I then say, okay, then if I sit back, I've got my Necrons, what can I do to build against that? For instance, if I did not know, for whatever reason, I did not know Space Marines very well, I might make the horrible, horrible mistake of bringing a lot of flayed ones or a lot of warriors against them, when Immortals would have been more efficient. Likewise, if I was playing against the Tyranid Swarm list, I might make the mistake and bring nothing but Immortals, thinking I can somehow outshoot him with my superior firepower, when in truth, I would be better off bringing Flayed Ones and, if need be, Warriors against him, and so forth, and so forth. And obviously understanding the weaknesses of each army. Like try to kill the Tyranid Warriors so he'll actually break, focus on killing the Imperial Guard Scions, because Imperial Guardsmen special weapons are shooting on force, they don't have a great shot, so forth, so forth. And, playing with Eric and being able to proxy play these other armies gave me a better understanding of what I may face against. That, and of course, kind of doing a bit of research, looking at what the current meta list is, and be like, what should I build to give me the best odds at beating, say, a Tyranid spam list, a Death Guard, blank launch, Death Guard, flail spam, and so forth, so forth. And that's just kind of like the planning. And for LVO at least, because we knew what mission, what maps, what objectives to play, we could further plan and just kind of get an idea what to expect. So definitely, and of course, getting in a lot of games, playing games over and over and over, ingraining whatever these special rules that every army has and tactics. So when I play against them, I don't need to I can't say forget, because for example, playing against the Eldar, people, not if you're not familiar with them, you won't remember that for one command point he can do a fire and fade. And if you don't remember he can do a fire and fade, you may not place your warrior or your warrior immortal or your flayed ones in a position so that even if he does fire and fade, he cannot get out of your charge range or your shooting or line of sight for shooting. It's little stuff like that that really builds up and then decreases your odds of performing at your best. That's really what Kill Team, 40K, and all other games is all about. Making the least possible amount of statistical mistakes.
You make it sound so exciting.
Well, it's Kill Team is fun when you get into all this thing, right?
No, yeah, I,
So,
I tease.
mm-hmm. And yeah, so that's kind of like my basic thought process, if you will, when it comes to playing these games. Let's see, what should I start talking about next? Should I talk about my games at the Adepticon, or
Yeah,
what
yeah.
are you thinking?
Dive
Like, feel free
into
to ask
your.
questions.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Let. Well, I know that you did a write up for Reddit, and I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
just regurgitate the content
Well, we
because that
can,
was a
because some
very
people might
well
not read it.
written. That is true. It was a very well
Mm-hmm.
written little document you did. But yeah, how
Mm-hmm.
about take us game by game? Because I think something that people are genuinely very interested, which is why your post got a lot of upvotes, is they just like to hear how games happen and how the person that obviously managed to win a pod and get a medal
Mhm.
views that particular matchup, that opponent, and then how the game went, and it's like, oh well, actually,
Mhm.
honestly, it was dice, or actually, no,
Well,
I completely outplayed them, or they outplayed me. I think the blow by blow is quite interesting to most.
okay. Well, fortunately, it only happened last week, so I should have my memory should still be fresh. If I do make any mistake, if I misremember something, I do apologize beforehand. Let's go by the play by play. So this is day one. It's on Friday. This is the morning pod. So it's missions 1, 2, and 3. The first player I played against was, quite interestingly, Dark Eldar, who's Eric's main army, and so I am very intimately familiar with what he can do. And
But
so
to
game one
clarify,
is
this
nope,
wasn't Eric.
this was not Eric. No,
Okay.
I did get to play against him later, but it wasn't this pod. No, or to that day actually. So what happened was mission one is an position-based map. So actually, this is very important if you're going to go into competitive kill team. Is you need to know your objectives and build your army not just so you can deal with the enemy, but to achieve your objective. This is a consistent problem that I see with people who come to competitors, who come to tournament, but don't know. Like this is the reason why people lose. And unfortunately, this Dark Eldar player made that point very clear. Mission one for Adepticon is a strictly objective, positional based objective. Holding the middle with mission critical supplies, domination, engage on all fronts, recon sweeps, so one of your guys is in a back line, so and that kind of stuff. He's playing Dark Eldar. So I know that he's very good at positioning. He's very good at maneuverability, and he's got his nasty. Well, actually, he brought a splinter cannon, but he did bring a fusion gun. And even though I'm Necron, it can still hurt me very, very well. Now, and right off the bat, I can tell that he was. Unfortunately, he was definitely a new player because he was a
Oh,
little
just
unfamiliar
to
with his
jump in
own
there
rules.
really quickly.
Yes.
Throughout this entire time, we haven't won. I'm sure that anybody that's gotten this far into the interview knows reanimation protocols. But do you want to explain reanimation protocols to
Oh,
just
certainly. It is the
you
only
haven't
thing.
mentioned it.
It is reanimation protocol is the only ability worth noting on a Necron. If you
Exactly.
forget everything else about a Necron can do, just remember reanimation protocol, which is whenever there is an injury roll made for a Necron, any Necron, and it is an unmodified roll of a 6. Not only do you do nothing to that Necron warrior, that Necron model will heal all its pre-existing flesh wounds. So if you happen to roll an injury roll of a 6 on a immortal leader who has 2 flesh wounds, not only does it not kill him, it heals him of all that flesh wounds, putting him back good as new.
Now, it shall quickly be noted that obviously you can re-roll an injury roll, and it's obviously a very weird thing for the opponent to have to do, but it might be better for the opponent to re-roll when they get a 6 of an injury roll on a Necron. Weird, but obviously that's something you have to think about. And also, it does change a lot of people's lists against the Necron, because as you just mentioned there, they brought a blaster. Is it?
A fusion gun and
Fusion.
a splinter cannon.
Now, the fusion gun, of course, does D6 damage, which means they have a D6 chances, or they have more than one chance. If only a single roll is a 6 of the injury roll, you get healed. Doesn't matter what he rolled elsewhere.
That is correct. So it went without saying that I was, frankly, unconcerned with this fusion gun. But the splinter cannon, well, it's kind of a hit and miss with that gun. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. The point, however, was that you can tell he was a new player because he was not familiar with my reanimation protocol, which was very surprising since it's the only thing a Necron has up his sleeve. Like, we don't have any other tricks. And additionally, just based on how he plays the terrain, for those who don't know, Adepticon, the terrains are not preset by the tournament managers. It's actually a roll-off, and then players place the terrain. So once again, another layer of strategy. And this is important because obviously it's hard for Necrons to score positionals. I obviously cannot do recon sweep because none of my guys can move quick enough to get to the enemy deployment zone. Engage on off runs might be doable, but it might spread me too far out. I was better off holding my two objectives, and just hardcore uh, destroying and holding the middle objective, since that was where the vast majority of the points would be for me. So therefore, this was the list. I went with 3 Flayed Ones, 2 Immortals, 3 Warriors. My Warriors would hold the objectives. Everyone else would just either focus fire on anyone close to the middle, and my Flayed Ones would hold that middle objective. And right off the bat, there was a big building terrain, which was placed in the middle. I got to place it, and I placed it in a way so that he would have to run around the building to get to the middle, whereas I could just walk 5 inches up there, sit tight, and relax. And then you can see that he was very fresh because he sent his army in piecemeal. The Dark Eldar, at his home 2 objectives, he placed his Cabalite warriors, his splinter cannon, and then just left them there trying to shoot me, trying to kill me. Okay shooting, but technically it doesn't bother me too much. He had moved his fusion gun, however, to cover the middle objective, and by stroke of luck, it actually did. I tried to charge it. It overwatched me twice, and it hit both times. But one time, it healed me because he rolled 6 on an injury roll, but the other one, he gave a flesh wound. So surprisingly, nothing bad happened there. And I was like, no, you know what? I don't appreciate being shot at while I'm trying to hold the middle objective. Let's remove the fusion gun. And that's what I did. I gently but firmly removed the fusion gun with my Gauss Flayer.
Weirdly,
and all while
the only gun that actually you probably want to keep on the board.
I actually did not want to keep that on the board because my Flame Ones holding the objectives could not fire back, and he was positioned in a way where I actually could not charge him. However, because there were 2 other Cabalites that were actually pressed against the windows, I could actually charge my Flame Ones up there, so that not only were they holding the middle objective, they were attacking his Cabalite warriors, who obviously couldn't shoot at them. All while there's an exchanging gunfire between our respective rear objectives, to which it goes without saying my gun was far superior because I had AP. He did not have any AP gun, and hence why the score was very skewered, 18-2, as I filled out all my objectives, and he only scored points for holding his own objective. Honestly, I don't think it was 18-2. It might have been 18-4 or 18-6. I know he was getting points for holding his home 2 objectives, but that was it.
Bit of a landslide.
Yes. So unfortunately, the Dark Eldar player was, for all intended purposes, a newbie. So I don't consider this, a proper tournament fight, if you will. Not to disparage him, but it is a competition, a tournament, if you will.
Yeah, of course. So, okay, your first game, very much easing yourself into it. First game of the tournament, first game of the pod.
Yep, getting used to deploying terrain to your advantage or your disadvantage, depending on if you get your own board edge.
Now I assume that during practice, another thing you thought about a lot was secondary objectives. Did you already know what your secondaries were going into each mission?
Yes, because Adepticon had released a book package detailing, what missions would be played, what were the primaries, what were the secondaries. So there was no surprise saying, oh, by the way, there is this magical secondary objective. What? No, none of that. I went in there, I knew what to do, and I knew which missions I was good at and which missions I was bad at. Necrons are good at missions 1, 2, 3, and 4. 5 and 6 is 5 is definitely a no-go. Mission 6 is 50-50. But I digress. We can get into that much later. So then my second game, however, was definitely one of my favorite games to play with, because second game I was paired up because obviously I scored very high. I obviously got paired with the next highest player, who was George from Warp Charged Gaming, who was playing Gellerpox, and he recorded this too.
Oh, lovely. Yes, I've finally. So it's going to be a bit for anybody that's listening to all of these interviews. You're going to hear the slow progression of me as I say to the same thing to each person. So in the past 2 interviews, I said, "Oh yes, I'm trying to get in touch with George. I've just made contact with George. We're trying to arrange an interview as we speak. So it's going to happen soon." Yes, sorry, George, Warp Charge Gaming. I hear he's good folk.
Oh, George, quite frankly, is a complete gentleman. Very sweet, very nice, very outgoing. That man is very humble and gracious at the same time. And I'll be honest, a very lethal player on the tabletop. Like he knew what he was doing. So the moment I faced him and the Galapox, I knew this was not going to be easy. Like and actually the reason it was not going to be easy was because Galapox is one of the few armies I'm not that intimately familiar with. Like I knew what they can kind of do, I knew what abilities they had, I knew a bit of their tactics, but I've never actually got to face them. So because of that, one thing I lacked was hard experience.
Of course, for anybody unaware, just before Adepticon happened, I had released my interview series with Chris from LVO, who had run Galapox, so that should have given you some tactical insight, hopefully.
Yes, and so with George, we were playing a mission two, which was the one with the 6 objectives. So and the different now this mission was definitely a fun one because this a complete contrast to mission one. Mission two is all about killing. All its secondary prime objectives are almost completely based on killing your opponent. And then of course you still had to hold primary objectives, but you could score just as much for killing. So this is very nice for Necron. He went with the typical two hulks, two killer blocks, and then filled the rest with eye stingers. Right off the bat, I can pretty much figure what he was going to do. He was going to lead his one of his killer blocks, who was obviously going to be had to be the leader, was going to sit on an objective safe behind a terrain, which he obviously placed as such. His eye stingers, which are these very little models, so easy to hide behind terrain, with only toughness, and of course very easy to kill, but you have to hit them because they have a natural -1 to be hit. He would use their superior mobility either to harass me or hold further objectives, even contest them, because obviously I don't have a lot of models to hold my objectives. And then his 2 brutes would march up into my face and just generally be a complete bollocks to deal with, because toughness 5, 4 wounds with a 5 disgusting resilience is I don't have, as in case you haven't noticed, Necrons have no multi-damage weapons, which means if I have to deal with anything that has multi-wounds, especially something of this unit, suffice to say I am poorly equipped to take them on. So definitely I was sitting back like, whew, this is going to be one hell of a fight. I have no idea how to deal with it. So I went once again with my response to all this: the 3 flayed ones, 2 immortals, 3 warriors. And we set up. We were raring to go, and I'm still thinking like, what am I going to do with this? So my general plan was I was actually going to split my forces into 2. I was going to have 2 flayed ones and a warrior on one side, with 1 warrior, the 2 immortals, and 1 warrior on the other side, with 1 warrior sitting at home. My idea was I was going to split my forces up and strike him at both ends. Generally speaking, you'd want to only hold 1/2 of the board, whether it's the short edge quarter half or the long edge quarter half. You don't want to spread out. But I felt like if I spread out enough, I could maybe divert his attention, because really his only threats that I know he has is the 2 hulks. Everything else is something I can kill, and even kill quite easily, I feel. So therefore my goal then was not to kill the hulks. As a matter of fact, don't even shoot at them unless they're the only targets one of my models can shoot, but to ignore them completely, delay them with whatever 1 model charge I can do, and just try to hold objectives and kill his models, because I know his flies are easy to kill, hard to hit but easy to kill, and hopefully win out on primaries. Secondaries I wasn't too sure I could do, because he actually, despite the fact he's a Galapox, he actually has a much smaller body count than I had anticipated.
Well,
So
we're
then what
talking
happened?
2 Nightmare Hulks, right? Which are 30
Oh
points.
yeah, 2 hulks.
Yeah,
That's a lot of bodies to
yeah,
bring.
yeah.
So then as it went out, however, he would send his eye stingers, the ones who aren't holding objectives, down to harass my objective, which would only have 1 body, so it would be contested. And likewise, he would actually charge one models, well, not two, because obviously it's just a little pest. And then, and surprisingly, actually, that was the one thing. His stinger fly actually killed one of my flayed ones in combat, which I was like, oh no, this is bad. This guy should not have died. Oh no.
It's
But at the same
embarrassing more
time,
than anything.
oh, it's very embarrassing. I killed him in the responding shot, but still, I was very sad. Suffice to say. However, what I felt was very fortuitous though was that my other group, which I mentioned before, was the two flayed ones and one warrior, had managed to actually draw his brutes in, his hulks in, and that was great because now I kept him busy, and more importantly, they had a better chance of living because hulks do 2 damage, which means twice as likely to trigger my reanimation protocol, which he actually did once or twice. And then by spreading out my forces, I was able to engage on all fronts and actually almost kill his leader for cut off the head. Unfortunately, I couldn't quite get it. I almost got it, but the dice roll didn't agree with me. All in all, it was a very close fight. His hulks were very close to challenging me. His flies wouldn't die, so on and so on. Like, you could get the full... You can see the whole fight because he had recorded it, and he's probably just editing it right now. But the final score was 11-9 with a 3-point difference. A very close match. We were actually neck for neck tied the entire first 3 rounds. And it was, I think, only on the 4th round I pulled ahead and secured the victory.
And also,
just barely.
ultimately, not that high a scoring round then either.
No, because like I said, he knew what to do with his flies. I think in hindsight, for him, if his Hulk had done a better job killing my flayed ones, he would have just wrecked house. I think I would not have scored as high as I could. I think he could have pulled ahead. There was actually 1 or 2 lucky shot from my Overwatch that killed his flies and stopped him from essentially tying my units down.
I think that what that game was possibly more than averagely so. Luck of the dice?
Hard to say. I would
It doesn't
argue.
really matter. Doesn't really
I know.
matter.
I would actually argue that we both did the right things. We both did the right strategies. We both engaged our opponents the correct way. And really, it came down to who had the better dice roll. And so I suppose you're right that there was 1 or 2 crucial moments where the dice roll agreed with me and allowed me to pull ahead by just 3 points.
Sure. Which I think there is a valid difference between both players doing the right thing and it then becoming luck of the dice, and one player doing a stupid thing that should have gotten them killed, but luck of the dice saved them. I think those are 2 very completely different tactical things.
Yes, it was definitely. I definitely felt that it was luck that decided I would win, because it easily could have decided that I was the one going to lose. Because, like I said, the first 3 rounds we were just neck for neck at the same point, tied the entire way. I think he actually pulled ahead by 1 point I think in the beginning, so that definitely had me a little concerned. But like I said, lucky dice, and I managed to win. Just barely though. Oof.
Nice.
One of my favorite games to play that entire tournament. No other game. Well, actually, there were a few other games that were just as good, but that one was the most memorable. So sorry, I should probably head to game 3, which was then I was once more again very, very concerned because this time I was going against Imperial Guard. And he was playing the typical list you would expect from an Imperial Guard player who was playing competitive. Because he actually played, and I think this is another Andrew, actually, not the Andrew that I'm speaking with right now. He actually played in LVO as Imperial Guard. I actually had seen him before, but I just couldn't recall him because we actually didn't get to meet up face to face in our fight. But I see him in passing at LVO. He was playing Imperial Guard, and he brought the typical plasma spam, if you will, with a slight adjustment. He went with 4 plasma guns on Scion. 2 plasma on Scions, 2 plasma on a Guardsman, and then 2 volley guns on his Scions, and 2 flamers on his Guardsmen. So not quite it's very balanced. Yeah. Very balanced. I actually had thought he would have brought, say, the typical 8 plasma spam against Necrons, because that's actually one of the few lists I'm genuinely scared of.
Even though plasma is doing 2 damage, and so you're
yes, even despite that, because Eric had done the math. Remember when I mentioned before that he was very methodical. He likes to do the math. He did the math and said that against Necrons, damage 1 weapons is far superior. Damage 2 weapons, slightly less so, but not so much that it's outweighed by its benefits. So actually,
Okay.
damage 2 weapons are still very effective against Necrons. It's when you get to damage 3 and higher, that's when you run a real tangible risk of making it easy to trigger reanimation protocol. Yes, and not to mention, on a supercharge, it's strength 8, AP 3. Even my immortals are not going to survive. I have a hard time surviving a shot from that.
Yes,
So I
yeah,
was
very true.
very. So this mission was an interesting one because once again it had a mix of for secondaries, a mix of both killing and objectives. But this one was different in its primary, and I find that once again, if you don't do a bit of your homework, read a bit, you lose out because this mission 3 is different in that you either score 3 points or 1 points for primary objectives. It's not like the other most missions where you score 1 point for holding 1, 2 points for holding 2, and 3 points for holding more than your opponents. This is the one where the primary is all or nothing. So I knew right off the bat I needed to hold 3 and maintain 3 or I'm in trouble because he is going to shoot me off the board very easily. So Andrew is, don't get me wrong, Andrew is a very competent player, but I feel that he
Well, it's
did not.
definitely not me you're talking about. Okay, carry
Okay, well, I'm sure you're a competent player too, but I don't think we've faced off one another yet, have we?
on. No, I'm not competent.
Okay, well, no worries. You can prove that to me on the battlefield one day.
We
But
will.
no, this Andrew was definitely a competent player. However, he underestimated the importance of good terrain placement before the battle. So I had managed to place the terrain around the middle in such a way that my flame ones could move there and be safe from the majority of his shooting and make it difficult for him to approach it without being charged out of line of sight. And I feel that's what allowed me to maintain a bit of my lead. Now, this was a funny map because he ranged himself in a gun line with his volley guns and plasmas, holding objectives and firing, while the rest of his team, two plasma, 2 flamers, and a bit of his goons, and he had a Scion medic who had the power fist, so that was his close combat guy. So he was kind of splitting his force half and half. One to shoot me to death, the other half to move up and contest me. Good choice on his hand, but I felt he was. But the problem was he wasn't as aggressive as he could have been. If he was far more aggressive, then I think he would have trashed me. Because my first 2 turn of shooting, my goodness, Andrew, you should have been there. It was atrocious. I could not hit him. If I hit him, I could not wound him, despite everything was 3 up. If I wounded him, he would miraculously make his 6 up armor save.
That sounds
Or I
like a
would
regular game to me, to be fair.
exactly.
Yeah.
For the first 2 games, I could not kill him. And I think I only gave him 1 flesh wound the entire 2 turns of shooting. It was atrocious. And all while he had brought his flamers, not only to flame my flame ones in the middle, but also to flame one of my home objectives in safety of cover too. And that hurt. And all while, and if I thought my shooting was atrocious, his shooting was only slightly better. Because he's got his plasma, his volley gun. He was hitting, he was wounding, but he was only giving flesh wounds. I had 3 or 4 fellows who had 1 flesh wound, and my leader, who I had foolishly placed him in line of sight for him to shoot at, had 2 flesh wounds. Ugh, my goodness, my butt was clenched tighter than my fist. And then it was turn 3. The whole game had spun around. Because at that point, my 3 flayed ones was able to make a charge onto his comms officer, his medic, people who were on the objective, his leader, that kind of stuff. And I managed to force him off further, all while scoring the important bounty hunter kills. Because turn onwards, he only killed 1 flayed one, I think, and 1 warrior. But he only picked up the flayed 1 kill. He couldn't get close enough to pick up the bounty hunter kill. And then my flame ones, in the meantime, was obviously cutting faces in close combat because, for what they're worth, they are better in fighting than the guardsmen are.
Yeah, I mean you're wounding on 3s.
Yes,
You should be
and
doing just fine.
actually, he made a very interesting tactical decision, which I feel might have cost him the game. He had along one of the long edges of one of my home objectives. He had sneaked plasma guard and a hot shot volley gun to contest, kill, and then hold that objective and force me off my own. Right? With my warrior out of his line of sight because I had moved my warrior so that he's fully hiding behind a pillar in hopes of not getting shot to death. Declared out of line of sight charge. Injured warrior, flesh wound. against 2 perfectly healthy guardsmen. And it was like a 7-inch charge. In a decision that I don't agree with him, he decided to retreat with both of them, which meant he gave up shooting. And
Wait,
more importantly, he was moving himself
with
away from my
what guns did they have?
the volley gun and a plasma gun. But I
That's-
was
that's
positioned in
big,
a way that he
yeah.
could not overwatch me.
Oh,
And it was a
okay.
7-inch charge.
Okay,
Yes.
gotcha.
Yes, I actually did not agree with that move, even if I had successfully made the charge. Because the thing was, that warrior was by himself, flesh wounded, and the only guy holding the objective. I was making a risk, getting him off, to tie them down, because I would rather be stuck in close combat with them than try to outgun these 2 heavy weapons. And I honestly felt like he should not have retreated, because it turns out I had rolled a 6, meaning if he had just stand still, I would have been stuck in the open, and he would have just shot me to death, and I would not have anyone holding the objective. Well, hindsight's 20/20, but even if let's say I knew that my warriors were going to make the charge, in his shoes, I feel like I would have kept them where they are.
Certainly, you'd still have been controlling the objective because a single warrior wouldn't have been enough to contest.
No. Okay, so the thing was, the warrior was holding the objective. These 2 guys that were sneaking around were not even close. Were not close enough to contest the objective or hold the
Right.
objective
You
yet.
had it the other way around.
Yes. But I had the initiative. So if I didn't do anything with that warrior, he would have just come around, hold the objective, shot me.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So I felt the charge was a much more pertinent move.
Sure.
And
then by him
that's why I did not
falling
agree
back-
him moving. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Because he retreated, so that's 2 important guns he could not shoot with. And that meant I could focus all my fires on something more important.
Yes.
All in
You,
all,
of course,
yeah.
then had the option to make the charge if you wish to make it, or stay still. And of course, staying still means you are still on the objective. No?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, hang on. Let me check. I'm actually not sure. Because it says make a charge. Because I know the rulebook says you make a charge move. It doesn't say. Let's see.
Oh, sorry. If you
if you
successfully
charge-
make the charge, you have to make the charge. Yes.
I do believe so, yes. And I
That's
did
correct.
not successfully, so I could stand still. If I had successfully, though, then that warrior would have gone off and I would have lost that objective. But
No,
I
yes.
guess for
I meant-
fortuitous
yeah.
fate, that did not happen. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I did not agree with his retreating. And then, of course, with my flayed ones going in and wrecking faces, I managed to pull ahead in my kills. And because I had denied him holding majority of the objectives, I managed to win ahead in primaries and a bit in secondaries. And the end result was the 16-7.
Okay. So not an unrespectable amount of VP for him, but still a definitive win.
Yes, I'm sure I might be misremembering because I don't think I've scored that much in scores. So it might have been 14-7, 15 or 16-7. Like honestly, the only thing that messed him up, I think, was just the terrain placement and the fact that he could not kill me. And actually, interestingly enough, he decided not to supercharge his plasma guns as well. So he was shooting at me with strength 7, AP 3, damage 1, which I guess was a much safer choice than supercharging and blowing yourself up against a Necron who could, reanimation protocol.
I suppose. I mean, personally, I like
It's hard to say.
to wound, but yeah,
Exactly. It's a hindsight. Once again, is always a 50-50, right?
of course, yeah.
So and then of course I beat that, and then game set match. I was the best in my pod and got the medal, but I wasn't the best overall because I'm not a meta army.
Because you're not Elliot, apparently. Yeah.
No, I'm not Elliot, and that's where it gets to game 2, which was in the afternoon. Right. So game 2.
You mean
Tyranids.
This is the second pod now.
This is the second pod in the
Okay.
afternoon. The second pod in the afternoon. So once again, you're fighting against another 3 different people in 3 different pods.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
So here we go. Game 1 in the afternoon was against Tyranid. I don't want to go too much into this because the gentleman, he's a very nice fellow, but unfortunately he was a very, very new player. He doesn't even know his own rules.
Okay.
Yes, he had gone off hiatus for a long while and just come back. So he actually missed the errata, for instance, that said comms cannot bless themselves anymore. And he was struggling to figure out what the strength and the shot of his barbed strangler was. So suffice to say, he was very new, and the score reflected it. It was 18-5. He was very rusty.
Fair enough.
But I will say surprisingly though that I had a what was it? Yeah, I had 2 flame ones that had charged his gaunts, one of his thermal gaunts that had hold the objective. I was trying to knock him off, and surprisingly, he made 3 sixes. I was like, what?
Blimey.
Like,
Okay.
it did not kill him.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, yeah, that's the one thing I don't. That's the only thing I don't like about Flame ones is the fact that sure I get the real wounds, but without an AP, it's like it's hard to say they're a combat specialist. Rather, they're just good at swinging.
Sure, yeah. And then it's great to
Yeah.
swing at things with 6-up saves because you don't really you don't expect them to make 6-ups.
No, but luck was with him that day, and he made that 6-up. I mean, I knocked him off afterwards, but certainly it set a very interesting tone on turn 1, where I was like, huh, okay, 2 flame ones couldn't kill a gaunt. Good to know.
Scary, yeah.
It's
But
very scary.
presumably, despite it not being a competitive game, again, you kind of got eased into the pod quite nicely there.
Yes, actually, that was kind of like the ongoing theme of almost the entire tournament until the last pot, but we'll get to that later. Yeah, and then he was bringing 2 warriors, one which had a Barb Strangler, he had a Lictor, a Gene Stealer, and I filled the rest with Termagants. This was a list I brought 7 Flate ones, 1 Immortal, and 1 Warrior to compete against, because I feel I needed more close combat options that I needed shooting, because this was Evaluate Find. No, not Evaluate Find, it was Mission 4, where you had to hold more than your opponents, and there was only 4 objectives. So I needed to hold 3 if I wanted to, come out against him, because there was not as much killing secondaries. But once I said before, because he was fresh, he kind of fed his Tyranids into me piecemeal. And also, I had won the initiative on turn 2. I was able to use a Flayed one to lock him down, so that he could not charge me. So, sorry, still game. I'm just kind of listing some things I remembered. So Tyranid Warrior and Lictor was side by side. I charged with a Flayed one, locked them both down so they could not charge me, so that they gave me more time to farm out more points. When he died, I sent in another Flayed one, and so forth, and so forth. And it was interesting because he actually made his Lictor the leader, where most people would prefer to make the Warrior the leader.
Well, I suppose, as you said, new player. Obviously, I mean,
yeah, new player.
For example, most people playing Orcs, if you just look at the list and don't really think about it too much, you'll probably make the boss knob the leader, right?
Yep, and actually that's what the Orc did on one of the pots. Once again, we will get to that later.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So in any case, 18-5, I beat him, and then unfortunately, I got paired up with Elliot, the meta Plague Marine player, and this was the one where I lost tremendously. This because first off, this was mission 5. It is a map very unconducive to a Necron environment because there was nothing going for me. All the secondary objectives worked against me, and the primaries were so situated that it made it difficult for me to challenge most armies. And when I played with Eric, Mission 5 was the map that I tend to do poorly. I might be able to win, but it'll be like very close, like a hair's breadth difference. And so against the Meta army, I did not do as well. At the time, he was trying out the sergeant with the plasma gun, the blight launcher, the flail combat, and then he filled the rest with the 16 Poxwalker. So this was the Death Guard spam list. In hindsight, I felt like I would have done better if I once again brought 7 or even 10 flayed ones to deal with a horde. I felt like I should have done that, but I did not because I needed people to hold the back objective. So I went with the 3 flayed ones, 2 immortals, 3 warriors. But that was the poor format, and you can say I lost from the get-go. With the Necrons, it's more important than any other army. You need to have the right formation. If you don't have the right formation, you've put yourself on the back foot already, and because it was against the meta, there's no forgiveness for that. So it was a straight-up loss on my part.
Yeah, Elliot said in his recounting of your epic tale that you had kind of implied that in hindsight you would have should have gone 10 flayed ones and you'd have done better with that.
Yes, that is correct. Because the thing was, because it actually for his list, his threat wasn't so much the plasma gun and the blight launcher and the flail. It was the Poxwalkers. Because when he has 16 Poxwalkers, because map 5 is purely positional, and it's not positional in a way that's helpful to me. But because he has 16 Poxwalkers, he can farm all the positionals he wants for days. So really, for me, it was really dealing with the 16 Poxwalkers, not so much, killing his sergeant, blight, and flail. Frankly, I should have, in hindsight, brought 10 flayed ones, aim to kill only his Poxwalkers and Poxwalkers alone, ignore his blight, ignore his plasma, and just get him off the objectives. And I think the score difference would have been that drastic. I think I would only win if I was super, super lucky. And I think I could have at least pulled a tie. And most likely, I would have lost only by 1, 2, or 3 points. But you can see from the point difference that poor formation means a poor result. 4-18.
Sure, yeah, that's painful. To be fair, with the Poxwalker spam, Elliot was getting 18 VP in basically all of his games.
Pretty much, yeah, exactly. So no, and that's unfortunately just the state of the tournament, because the winner, generally speaking, goes to the one who has more bodies and who can hold all positionals. Like, yeah, and since there are more positional maps and objectives than there are killing ones, he tends to do very well. And he's no slouch in the killing ones as well, because his plasma blight are safely behind an incredible screen of poxwalkers, while his flail, goes without saying, is a beast in close combat.
Of course. So you didn't pull out the 10 flayed ones on this army, this
No,
faction. Did you
no,
ever
because
actually go 10 flayed one?
no.
Okay.
Oh, I wanted to actually, because
Oh,
the thing was, I knew my 10 flayed ones was good against cultist spam and Tyranid spam. But I guess for some reason, but I guess the reason why I didn't do it for him was because it's Death Guard, and he still had his Sergeant, Blight, and Flail. And I was thinking, I need people, while my low flails deal with the poxwalkers, I need people to be able to shoot and deal with them. But no, in hindsight, because he had so much more poxwalkers than he had Plague Marines, even if they were specialists, my best bet was honestly the 7 flayed ones and 1 shooter of each, or even just 10 flayed ones.
Right, sure.
Yes. So once again, this is a mistake on my part, so I deserve that loss. But no. So thinking back, I just kicked myself in the butt. I really should have gone with that out of the list. Anyway, so game 3, I went up with, interestingly enough, another Plague Marine player.
Oh.
Yeah. Now this one went with a slightly more balanced list, but it was different in the fact that he had 2 Blight launchers. Instead of the flail, he had the Great Cleaver. So I just think that he didn't have the model for the flail, or he just liked the cleaver better. Sergeant, who only had a plague sword, so not wielding plasma gun. I think a Plague Marine or 2, and then a few poxwalkers. This was on mission 6, where it's that triangle deployment where you can quite literally make a first turn charge depending on how things went. Now this was the list I went. Now seeing the list, I went with the 2 flayed ones and 5 immortals, because it went without saying the poxwalkers was not the problem. It was the Plague Marines, and goes without saying his cleaver and his blight launchers. This was an interesting game because I had won the initiative, so I was able to, from my deployment zone, do a first turn charge with my flayed. Let's see, who is it? Yes, one of my flayed ones charged into his gaggle of poxwalkers and Great Cleaver, who I presumed were placed in such a way that he was going to do the same thing to me. And then I left my flayed one and the rest of my people to move up to the middle objective and to contest with him, because obviously I need to hold more objectives than he do. And it went without saying he responded in kind by bringing his blight launchers up to the middle with his Plague Marines in tow. His sergeant was in there, and this was an interesting fight because my flayed ones that was locking these the 2 poxwalkers and his Great Cleaver just wouldn't die. Just over and over again, he was failing to wound, or he was failing to kill him, or I was passing my save, and he did, I think, if I remember right, procs a reanimation protocol. And so with that one filled one, paired with one of my immortals who stayed behind to kind of provide covering fire, so turn 1 I charge, he survived. Turn 2 he would fall back, and my immortal would fire at the poxwalkers, not the Great Cleaver, because I'd rather kill the poxwalkers than the cleaver. And surprisingly, failing to do that, then I would charge him again, and so forth, so forth. And so actually there was nothing happening here. But what I was doing was I was keeping his models in his deployment zone so that he couldn't score the keep moving secondary objective, which I figured most people would take anyway. All the while, a great fight was happening in the middle objective, where my flayed one had charged, my other flayed one had charged in. And actually, I think I charged in another immortal just for a good measure, just to keep him tied down. And then, in an act of complete, I disagree with his tactical choice. He charged his blight launchers, he charged pretty much everyone into that combat as well. Yes, because I guess he was hoping to kill me in the amount of tax. Kill because the fighting had positioned itself in such a way where my guys was holding the middle objective, but he wasn't because he was too far back, and there was no way for him to get around the ensuing fight to get to run around the clusterfuck and get to the middle objective. So, and the entire time, my Fleet One just wouldn't die, all while my Immortals were shooting at his other Plague Marine, which was holding that lone objective at the far end, which meant he was left holding, theoretically, no objective. But at the same time, I only held, I think, only one objective, because the bottom one was contested by his Cleaver and my Fleet One Immortal and one of his Poxwalker, so it's constantly a 2-on-2. And I think it was only in the last game I managed to kill the Poxwalker and then hold two objectives instead of one. All in all, I honestly don't remember the score, but all I know was that I only won ahead by 2 or 3 points.
Okay, so despite the Death Guard not being piloted by Elliot, still a very formidable team.
So formidable team. I think if he was on a competence at my level, I think I would lose. I think I would lose.
Okay.
Yes.
Was he specifically a newish player, or he just wasn't quite?
I don't know. I honestly don't know if he was new-ish or like he obviously knew how to play his army, but I don't think he was playing it to its fullest potential.
Okay, sure.
It's kind of like that skill set, He's not a freshman, but he's obviously not a professional. And so that was how my afternoon went, and it went without saying I did not win the medal. I think this was the one where Eric was playing the Tau list. Yes, I think this was the one he was playing Tau, and it went without saying he did quite well.
Yes, indeed. It was the Tau that he got. Well, all of them, obviously, as we already said, that he got one of the medals with.
Yes, and then we move on to day 2, the morning fight. Oh my goodness! One thing they don't tell you doing these tournaments like 2 days in a row is how mind-numbingly exhausting it is to play 12 hours.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness! It felt like the brain was. I was thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to win these 2 boss because I'm so exhausted. But once again, back into the 4. So day 2, first pot.
Just very quickly, one of the things that I keep saying, I said it with Eric about Tau in Arena. The great things that you could do with Fly is that obviously people are scared of drone spam because there's so many shots being put out. But then people say, "Oh well,
No. Actually, no. The threat of the drone spam isn't its shots. Frankly, that's the luck of the draw. No, the benefit is that you're once again positionals, and they're models that can literally fly over people and hold objectives in ways that no other models can.
Indeed,
that's the real threat,
and that is part of what I've said in the interview, both with Elliot, I think, and with Eric, is that. And this is why I'm saying it now, sorry, to link to your point of your brain was mush by day 2, is that not being able to fly and just go straight over your other models, even if you're not at the top of your game and you're not positioning everything perfectly, you can just fly. It reduces the cognitive load on the player somewhat.
No, definitely. So that's why I have a particular loathing for Tau and their flying, because they got the best of everything except combat.
Well, they don't need it. It's fine.
Well, no, and it's so difficult to counter Tau because honestly, if he brought Tau against my Necrons, I would lose. In a positional game, I would lose. There's no response that I can, based on what I can do. There's no response that what I can field to counter his drone spam as a Necron.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, they're very strong. Anyway, sorry for interrupting you there. I just that popped into my head as you mentioned your brain turning to mush for day 2.
Yes.
Sorry, please continue.
Yes. No worries. So day 2, I was playing. So here we go. Day 2 in a morning tournament. My first opponent was a Grey Knight, and if you were there, it was Bob Ross.
Oh, I think yes, I saw you mention this. I haven't seen any pictures, but it sounds fascinating. Tell us.
Yeah, no, essentially, so he was cosplaying as Bob Ross, and his palette was essentially a magnetic base for his 5 Grey Knights, who were colored in one of the primary colors, so red, green, yellow, blue, that stuff, and it was very, very nice. Like, kudos to him. I'm
Oh,
surprised he actually
lovely.
didn't win the painting, because come on, he brought an entire costume with it.
Yeah, that seems should have gotten at least a participation trophy, I think.
Yeah, something like that. But in any case, so interesting enough, he plays Grey Knights the same way I play Necrons, in that he plays it for the challenge. Because Grey Knights, in order to do well tournaments in Grey Knights, you have to be just that much more better in your tactics and your luck too. So like kudos to him,
Yes.
but obviously I need to win. So I went with my 2 Flayed Ones and 5 Immortals.
Just to clarify quick. Oh no, this is the first game of the pod, isn't it?
First game of the
Okay.
pod, day
Yeah.
2.
Cool. Continue.
In the
Sorry.
morning. Yep. This is the one where I feel luck was completely skewered on my side and did him no favors. Because in turn 1 shooting, I had killed off his silencer, which is his heavy shooting. He was supposed to shoot back at me because he readied. So if I didn't kill him, he would have shot back and it would have hurt a lot because it did D3 damage. Yes. So I managed to kill him off. Then I killed another Grey Knight of his, and I think I flesh wounded one or the other. I wasn't too sure. But I killed 2 of his Grey Knights, and that left him with almost only half of his combat capacity. Suffice to say, not a fun position for him to be with. And his psychic attack only did a flesh wound. Turn 2, I felt, was his chance to turn things around, because his Thunderhammer had a decisive move, and despite my ability to counter his decisive move, he won the roll off. So he declared a charge on both my leader and my Flayed One. And this was where I was thinking, oh no, one of them is going to die, or both of them is going to die, and I'm in trouble. Like, he got into his comfort zone, right? He made the charge, obviously. My Overwatch did nothing to him. He was stuck in. And once again, the Dice Gods did not approve of him because he missed. No, he only hit one of his attacks. He split 1 and 1, leader and Flayed One. He missed on a Flayed One. He hit my leader, but he rolled a 1 to wound. Yes, so it was very embarrassing. And as though to put the cherry on the ice cream, it wasn't my Flayed One, but my Immortal, who landed the hit, who landed the wound, who he failed his armor save on a 2, and then died.
To be entirely honest with you, I feel for Bob Ross in this instance because I'm going to be taking Grey
I
Knights
feel
to
for him
Warhammer
too.
World, and I expect most of my games are going to go like that. Yeah.
I felt for him really badly. And then my shooting killed his 4th Green Knight, which only left him with his leader, who was holding the objective, holding the Force Staff, and suffice to say, it was 18-4. honestly, it was luck that decided to punish him, not my tactic. If luck had been more balanced between us, I feel it would have been a much closer game.
Yeah, I mean, losing 2 of your guys on turn 1 is just that's pretty unlucky and bad.
For a Grey Knight too, where they're always limited to 5 people.
Yeah,
It doesn't get any worse than that, honestly.
yeah. I mean, if those were losing 2 Poxwalkers from out of 15 Death Guards, then it's like I don't care, you know.
No, that's the benefit of
Uh,
a swarm, right?
exactly. Yeah. I don't want to get too sidetracked on Grey Knights. Obviously, there's something I'm thinking about a lot now because on the weekend I'm going to be playing them at Warhammer World.
Good luck with it.
I'm gonna need it, mate. I'm gonna need it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yes, remember to sacrifice a virgin to the love god. No, the dice god.
I always do. The variance is just so high. As you don't have enough models for average rolls to really start taking effect, and if you just get a few bad ones, you lose 60% of your team. Turn 1, easy,
Yes.
easy.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway,
All right.
sorry, yes, continue.
So, of course. So game 2, this was interesting because now this is Eric, who was, for this pod, playing Dark Eldar.
Exciting, okay. Now,
Very
I
exciting.
assume that obviously he's your regular practice partner and Drukhari are one of his core teams. Is this a thing that
Yes.
you'd already played out before?
Oh yes, I helped him practice his I helped him build and refine his Dark Eldar list. Like this is a list that I've been playing against him for since we've known each other. Like at first he was playing Tau a lot, but Dark Eldar was his favorite army to play with, and this one we are intimately familiar with one another. I know what his army can do. He knows what my army can do. It's just two old friends duking it out to the death.
Awesome.
So I think, to his credit, this is a mission not conducive to him because mission 2 is a killing mission. So suffice to say, I had the edge because obviously my shooting in general is just better than him. And his witches, even though they're armed with Hydra gauntlets, which has rerolling failed wounds, does not really guarantee a kill for him. So it's he was definitely fighting an uphill battle on this map. If it was any other mission, mission 1, mission 3, mission 4, any of the potential missions, I would be the one on the back foot. It just so happens he was placed in a poor mission, just like I was placed in mission 5 against Elliot. So he decided to go for broke, so to speak. So we deployed our guys, and what he did was he brought on his Hydra Gauntlet veteran, did a veteran move so that he could place himself right there, right next to my leader and my flayed one. And it goes without saying what his tactic was simple. He was going to charge both, delay them, but more importantly, kill my leader and deny me my command points, which, if he had pulled off, would have been crippling. Yes, and I sunk a lot of points to try to stop him too. I tried to counter his decisive move because I didn't win the initiative. I tried to tactic reroll one of my hit dice when I tried to Overwatch. No, I couldn't Overwatch because he had placed himself behind a statue, so I couldn't even Overwatch him. And despite the risk, I decided not to retreat because I would rather, because if I retreated and he failed his charge, well, I'm stuck doing nothing. And so he charged, he made it into the Flayed Ones and Immortals, but my leader, by all stretch of the imagination, survived his attack, and once again, a mirror image to the Grey Knight fight, my leader was the one to deal the killing blow, not my Flayed One.
So, to be
Leading
fair,
by
a little bit
example.
more respectable, or not as embarrassing for a Grey Knight to die to an Immortal. A witch
No,
having
and
T3. That's acceptable, that's
yeah,
fine.
and not to mention, he delayed my leader and my Flayed One, which meant I couldn't get them into position earlier than I would like to, because I was trying to do, once again, my split tactic. So he did buy time for his other people to move into position. So on one half of the end, he had a splinter cannon, comms officer, leader, and a lot of guns pointing at one of the home objectives closer to his side. And he tried sending a lot of his Hecatrix with the Agonizer, another Hydra Gauntlet, Pleb Witch, and a Caplite Warrior to contest my own gauntlet. So it was going to be a crazy fight on both sides, no matter how I split it. So this was the one where he couldn't kill people because my warrior and actually he did kill off my immortal comms officer. So once again, I was a bit on the back foot. But one of my Flayed Ones that I sent out, my plebeian, sent out to hold one of his objectives. It did not matter how many splinter cannons or splinter rifles he shot into him. He could not kill that Flayed One for the entire 3 turns of non-stop, like 16. Oh my goodness. He must have shot at least 16 to 20 times at that Flayed One. He just wouldn't die. And then
So, dice.
oh yeah, so that part was dice. The other one though was he got his I charged at him, and once again it was dice. It did not help him. Yeah, no, I think in general though, this map, along with the fact that it was not his good map, I think the dice roll favored me a bit, and I was making my rolls. He wasn't making his kills, and so by the same time the game ended, he had only killed 1 immortal. I had killed pretty much all his witches, a few Caplites, leaving only his leader, comms, and splinter rifle, and a Caplite warrior alive, which was brutal.
That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah, so 17-6. This was not a good map for him. Any other map, I think he would pull ahead and defeat me because his mobility for business initials is much better than me. And then we move on to game 3, the Orc. I found this to be interesting because obviously having scored almost perfect scores on both of them, I would be paired up with whoever else was doing well in their pod, and it was the Orc player. He was definitely. I wasn't sure if he was experimenting with new things or if he was a competitive player or what, but his setup was interesting. So what he did was he had his leader was the Commando Knob, of which he would use him to hold the objective because knobs have -1 to hit if they're obscured. The Commando version, sorry. Then he had the Boss Knob, which had the the big chopper. So no doubt this was his combat specialist. And then he actually had a fire base, which was of 4 big shooters, one comms officer who was the Luta Spanner with the custom Mega Blaster, and then he had a heavy def gun. Yes, so they were grouped onto one objective, and then he filled out the rest with a mix of shooters and sluggers. And so this list, I was thinking, what should I bring? I was tempted to bring my my meet all list, the 3 flayed ones, the 2 warriors, the 3 warriors, the 2 immortals. But I was like, no, you know what? They only have a 6-up armor save, and I know their shooting is trash. So this one I went with 7 flayed ones, immortal, and warrior, because I was confident that even with his comms blessing his def gun, his shooting should not be good enough to defeat me. So I went with that list. He deployed out. This was mission 3. So once again, this was the one where you had to hold the majority objectives to score, your primaries. To score 3 rather than score 1. So holding 3 objectives was terribly important. So turn 1, he had the initiative. He obviously moved his orcs a bit forward and all that stuff. And my flayed ones, I threw caution to the wind and I advanced everyone. Just bum rushed the crap out of him, even at the risk of not being obscured. Because I wanted to get these guys in as close as possible in close combat. Because if I can get into close combat, my flayed ones should theoretically chew him up. All while my leader Immortal and my warrior were holding my back end objectives, which was, when you think about it, a little risky. Because if he managed to shoot one off, that'd be very annoying. And that's what he tried to do with his spam of shooters, his def gun boosted by his comms. He just wailed away at my warrior holding one objective. And, well, failed everything.
Sounds like orc shooting, sadly. Yeah.
Well, the thing was, he actually had scored 6 wounds. I was counting 6 wounds, but by some miraculous luck, I passed on my armor save, and he actually got a chance to make an injury roll, but he rolled a 6. He tactical re-rolled and rolled another 6. So once again, this is just one of those little things where luck just plays a big factor. It's brutal, isn't it?
It's a shame. Like, obviously, I'm talking to you. Great that you won, but it would have been really quite cool to have seen a shooting orc list, like take Hod. No,
yes,
I don't think anyone
I know.
would have expected that. It'd be like
exactly. I've always toyed with the idea of just bringing a lot of shooters and big shooters and see what that would be like. Just for giggles.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to take it.
And then I had managed to actually score the middle objective because he had bum rushed one of his shooter boys to the middle, which actually, and then I declared 3 flayed ones to charge him, at the risk of his Overwatch, and one of them actually got in, so it was contesting. And then so contesting, and I managed to kill him because the other guys managed to get up close, not into contact, but enough to hold the objective. So I held 3, so I held the primary for this one. Turn 2, however, was the most crucial because we were both pretty close to one another, like 6 inches. So whoever got initiative was going to have one heck of a charge because I knew, even though he was, a lot of big shooters, Mega Blasters, he's an orc at heart, and he should, by all odds, charge me. And I managed, and once again, by luck, I had the initiative. And I declared my charge with everyone, charging into the boys that was holding objective, charging into his knob with the choppers, with 2 flayed ones, a zealot and a plebeian, charging into more hordes. But the thing was, of course, he was also counter-charging as well. So it wasn't completely one-sided. It would be a one-on-one trade-off like such. Now, what carried the day for my guys, was the fact that even though I have no AP, I get to re-roll failed wounds. And an AP wasn't too important because he was already a 6-sub armor save. All but negligible. So I pretty much on that turn 2 chewed through his entire orc horde. Like I must have killed 5 or 6 orcs that turn and flesh wounded many more. And he unfortunately had to take a break test. He failed. So it was a nerve check for everyone. And it was safe to say that we didn't even play to the end just because once an orc is broken, it's pretty much a good game. There's no reason to keep playing.
It sounded like it was starting really good with he got 6 wounds, but No.
No, and the thing was, he was giving me back wounds as well, right? Like, because they're orcs, they're no slouch in fighting. Because
Yeah.
he had his choppas, his big choppas, all that stuff, and the best he could show for was a flesh wound on my zealot. So after all the trading, I came out way too much ahead, and unfortunately, he was unable to fight on effectively.
A quick tactical question while we're here then. So let's say you've got your flayed one there, you've got 3 attacks, right?
Yes.
And let's hypothetically say you have, think of this completely in a vacuum. Not you're not trying to get one model killed so that you are then contesting an objective or winning it. Just in a vacuum. Would you put all of your attacks into a single model, or would you split them up? Would you two into one, one into the other, or
Against the orc, I split them up.
okay, okay,
Against, generally speaking, if the enemy model is weak and easy to kill, or theoretically easy to kill, I would split my attacks. Against tougher models, I would pile them all in on one.
okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because it's much easier. Actually, interesting enough, it's easier for a Necron to do this kind of split tactic because we can reroll our failed wounds. Space Marines, for example, even if they have specialized weapons, because there's no guarantee they will wound, it's much safer for them to pump all their attacks into focus on one model. Whereas because for me, wounding is pretty much guaranteed, and I'm hitting on threes anyway. It's much better to split my wounds and aim for causing multiple deaths, which is what happened. Each of my flayed one was taking out 2 orcs out of 3, or killing one, injuring one, and I remember one flayed one actually just completely botched his attack and just hit nothing, just ones and twos. I was like, okay, not feeling it today.
No, okay, fair enough. I just thought I'd ask, as obviously when you end up with that kind of a pile up, it's just interesting to see what a professional thinks. Do you pile all in on one at a time, make sure you get the kills, or do you spread it round?
Against a horde, you have to charge as much people as possible and spread the attacks. You cannot waste time doing it one by one.
Sure.
You're better off spreading the attacks.
Okay, fair enough. Continue. Sorry.
Okay, so now this was the afternoon fight, and this was where I suffered my loss against the Gene Stealer cult.
Oh, sorry.
This
So
one,
you won that pod, obviously. Then and
I
got
did win that
yourself.
pot, yes,
Was this your second
because
win?
Eric, yes, Eric couldn't. I almost got max points, but you know who won the best overall? Elliot. Why? Because he was Plague Marine, and he scored max points for everything. If I had
Okay.
scored max points against Eric on the second game, I would have, it would have been a tie, but.
So just quickly, how does that work exactly? You won the
So
most
yeah,
games, but he had the most points?
so what happened was this is so I'm not sure if I agree with the format of what they did. So what happens was everyone would be split into pods, which is generally I think 8 to 10 players, and then they would face off in 3 games, and then they were counting strictly on victory points alone, so not on wins. You could lose one or even 2, but if you had more points, total victory points added up compared to everyone else, then you would win best overall.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, so he won his pod, I won my pod, but because I didn't max, I was only 1 point shy away from maxing out on Dark Eldar. He won by technicality in terms of best overall. So this will be let's see, this is day 2, the afternoon pod. This was the one I did not win because the Gene Stealer cult. I'm still sitting back here. I'm still. Interesting note. They recycled the mission. We were playing mission 1, 2, and 3 again. We did not play 4, 5, and 6. I wasn't sure if because they ran out of package or they wanted to keep things simple and just 1, 2, and 3 again. But in any case, that was the missions we were playing. So it was mission 1. It was position based, 5 objectives. Holding the middle was more important. Gene Stealer cult. I'm not sure if I should have brought a different formation or I just made a poor tactical error on this one. But I lost by 1 point against him, 14-15.
Very close. Do you
Very
know what the
close.
list was, or was
Oh
this
yes, I have a good idea.
Sheridan?
I kind of do remember. If I remember right,
Sheridan.
so first off, he's a Gene Stealer cult. So it goes without saying he picked 3 heavy rock cutters. You'd be silly not to.
That's the first thing you put on your
Yep.
list, yeah?
He went with what more interesting though was that he went with 4 basic cult soldiers with a mix of shotguns and last guns. And then he filled out the rest with Gene Stealers.
Oh, okay.
So right off the bat, this was a very close combat list. I'm sitting back here thinking, should I try to compete him in shooting? Because our deployment was so close, I know he could theoretically get on a first turn charge. but I could technically very easily outshoot him because he has no real gun to speak of. But then because it was so close, I knew that if I could not shoot him to death in turn 1, turn 2 would look bad for me. So I was split between going with my all-comer setup, which was the 3 flayed ones, 2 immortals, 3 warriors, or going with the 7 flayed ones and 1 shooter each. After thinking long and hard about it, and we had placed the terrain so that it was very difficult for both of us to get to the middle objective, I decided to go with the 7 flayed ones and the 2 shooters. So this is the one where we, unfortunately, I could not hold the middle objective against him strongly. So for the first 2 turns, I was missing out on a bit of my domination and majority holding, because he was technically holding the majority. So actually, I was falling back quite a bit for the first 2 turns. It actually looked like I was going to lose straight out, because not only could I not hold my objectives properly, I could not kill him. The dice rolls, all the lucky dice rolls I've had in the previous game have finally caught up to me, and I was my flayed ones were not successfully hitting. They were not successfully wounding, even on the rerolls. And even when I injured him, his rock cutters would miraculously make 5-ups and 6-up saves, while he would respond, well, with his heavy rock cutter. No, because the thing was, the heavy rock cutter rules is where if you just so much as touch someone, they pretty much erase, and it ignores my reanimation protocol. So the rock cutter is pretty much my very strong counter. I was hoping by getting the charge, I would kill him. So this was the one instance where I would dump all attacks into one model, rather than try to spread it out.
Makes sense, yeah.
And then, and so the first 2 turns, I was unable to kill him, and he was slowly but steadily getting rid of me. So I was losing badly. But what happened was he had suffered enough casualties and flesh wounds that on turn 2 he had to take a break test. This should be no concern to him because he has gene stealers, which are leadership 9. But then what happened was he failed his break test on a roll of a 10. So he was broken on turn 2. And everyone had to take a nerve check. Now I thought this is my chance to get back, but even then it was still a hard fight because most of the guys that were alive were gene stealers who obviously had a super high leadership and was not concerned. And because he was grouping them up, they buffed each other, so the penalty wasn't that bad. His cultists, obviously with the lower leadership, was leadership 7. So that meant even though they were, technically grunts, they were actually high leadership grunts. So they did not shake as often as I would have liked them to. So turn 3 and 4, my goal was to kill the gene stealers. So then the lower leadership cults would shake and would not hold objectives and count for objectives, and I would win. Turn 3, turn 4, I could not kill his gene stealers. Didn't matter how much attacks I focused on them, they just would not die. One of them, I think, had 3 flesh wounds, despite the fact that everything was -1 to hit in close combat for him and shooting as well. And suffice to say, I only managed to pull up to 14 to his 15, and it was a victory in his favor.
Oh, odd one. A very odd game then, from the sounds of it.
Very odd game, but to be fair though, he was also not killing me as well as he could have with his gene stealers as well. And actually, one of my flayed ones actually survived a heavy rock cutter because he only hit once, and then rolled a 1 for the immediate death because he needed to roll higher than my wound, and then rolled a 1 to wound. It was like the most amusing way to survive. He just rolled 1 after 1 after 1 for that guy.
Is that the way it works? I thought that you roll once the wound has been removed, so you would technically have 0 wounds.
No, it's been double checked by the errata. So before they said it's before the armor roll. So after the wound, so after the wound roll, I think it was. No, but sorry, before the wound roll.
That makes more sense, because if you have 0 wounds, then you always remove it.
Yes, exactly. Okay. So that was very interesting. For the rock cutters, it's literally whoever they hit, most likely will just immediately die. But yes, that was a very interesting game. And this is the game that puzzles me even to right now, because I've been thinking about it nonstop. I'm thinking, did I pick the wrong formation? Could I have done better? Should I have gone with more shooting and just shot him off the board? This is the one game that was so ambiguous in my eyes that I still don't know. Did I make the right choice and it was just poor dice roll and poor tactic, or did I make the wrong choice but good dice roll and good tactic saved me, or stopped me from losing completely? So this is the game I found the most interesting.
Yeah, no, it's I guess it's good to get those puzzlers sometimes, isn't it? Something to ponder
Definitely.
on. It would be interesting, I suppose, to have Eric play the same list and see what happens, maybe.
Indeed, actually, I would love to see him play against the same list, and I think he would do a bit better too.
Oh no, sorry, I meant in your practice games with Eric.
Yes,
Have
actually,
him
and actually,
proxy
I've been
into
thinking
his
about.
list,
I'm
yeah.
thinking about for in the future to start doing competitive in Eldar or Genestealer Cult because I have both of those army. That's
Oh,
what.
yeah, why not?
So being able to face against that also kind of gives me something to chew about as well, which is really nice. And then I play my other two pod games. This is the one. It's like someone pulled a rubber band and just let go because all of a sudden my luck just flung to the extreme for these two lists. It wasn't even a proper game. If you look at my score, it's 18-1 for both
Ooh.
the Admech and the Thousand Suns.
Now that's odd because
Very
they're
odd.
both good teams.
Yes, and it was so odd. I was like, "What happened?" So let me give me the shimmy down. So let's do the Admech first. This fellow, he's he's an okay player. Like he's average player. So he's not competitive, but he's definitely no slouch. He knows his army. He knows what it does. He knows what I do with reanimation protocol. And he actually went with a arc rifle because he didn't want the plasma cavalier to trigger my reanimation protocol.
Makes sense. Okay.
I Yeah, personally, actually, I still would have gone with the plasma gun, but I can see his reasoning because the AP. I prefer the AP3 on the plasma cavalier over the AP1 on the arc rifle. You just
Sure,
don't
yeah.
supercharge your gun, and it's still effective. But anyway, I digress. He also brought the Blackstone Fortress, the big robot 0251, was it?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, yeah, that's the one.
yes. Yep, he brought as well. He had his leader, which had the phosphorus pistol, and obviously was going to hide in the corner because she's not going to fight. And then he had a Vanguard sergeant who was armed with the arc maul and the arc pistol, who was the zealot, and that's his close combat. He had two arc shooters, one of them which had the sniper, and then comms officer with the auspex, and he had a princeps. I forgot if it was the Ruststalker or the Infiltrator. It's the one that had the multi-pistol shot, the 5-pistol one. It's the I think that
I
was the
don't know
Infiltrator.
Admech well enough to answer, but yes.
Okay, you know what? I'll check real quickly. Okay, so it was the Infiltrator, I think. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So with the power sword and the stub carbine. So and then he had an extra goon, his galvanic rifle. And then so I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be a pretty nothing I can't handle because I can just safely ignore because I know with my guns and setup I will never be able to kill So my best option is just to kill everyone else and I'll be fine.
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. So we were setting up blah 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 all that stuff. He set up to hold one of his objectives, and I presume he was going to move him forward. And I went with my all-comers list of 3 Flays, 2 Immortals, 3 Warriors, blah, blah, blah. Split into 2 groups. And because he's Admech and he's smart, he goes with Shroud Psalm for his turn 1, which means all obscured models receive a further -1 obscurity. Now, here's where the ridiculous, phenomenal good luck kicks into overdrive. My warrior was able to flank one of his gunners, I think one of his arc rifles or one of the comms officer, flank him and shoot. And because he's now an obscure, Shroud Psalm didn't affect him. Hit, wound, failed his armor save, and I killed him. Okay, so I killed one guy. No biggie, right? It happens.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, and we have both have our readies and unreadies. So he responds with and by the way, he had charged one of my flayed ones with his Vanguard sergeant because I had advanced him to bait them into charging. He responded with firing his assault cannon or something right into my 2 flayed ones who were obscure but within short range. Did nothing. I was like, okay, happens to the best of us. I saw that one of my Immortal was close enough to his sergeant who was hidden because I had cut off the head. I was like, you know what? I'll shoot at him, see if I can get lucky. So this one I had boosted with the comms, but I didn't want to waste points by doing more boosts like with the targeting optics because I was like, you know what? It's probably not going to hit because even with the boost at the comms, it was long range, so it's actually really bad. So I was thinking, just pot shots, see if I'll get lucky. I roll. I hit. Okay. I wound. Okay. He failed to save. Okay. 5 to 6 injury roll. 6. Killed the leader and got cut off the head on turn 1. I was like, come on! Now
That's so tough.
I know, and his sniper had flanked my zealots, my flame ones, so they were unobscured. He rolled 2 1s. No, 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 no. Yeah, and he did a sniper boost too. So he re-rolled and got another hit. He got a hit,
Oh,
but
okay.
he failed to wound.
Right. Right.
So I was like, okay, well, the Princeps is really close to my immortal leader. If I don't do something to him, he's going to charge me. So I should at least weaken him. So my leader fires into the Princeps, who obviously is obscured. So once again, fires a hit. 6 and a 6. I was like, okay, toughness 3, 3's a wound, 3 and another 3. I wound him. Okay, fails both armor save. Okay, injury roll. Boom, dead.
Oh man, this is just painful. Ah.
Yeah, in one game, and then and in one game alone, I wasted. And then it went on. And at the end of the game, the turn 1 and his charge, he didn't even kill my flame one. My flame one didn't kill him, but he didn't die. So at the end of the first game, I killed his leader, I killed his princeps, I killed an arc rifle, I killed his comms. 4 people dead on the first game, and he had shrouds on. He was obscured. It's not like he placed his guys under the open. It was, and obviously he had to take a break test. He didn't break, but it went without saying that he was in real big trouble.
He might have broken in real life. The player.
No,
was
he was broken in real life. There was no doubt about it. And then turn 2 was no better because he was so gutted that he couldn't do anything. And turn 2 was where he broke, and it was like, let's not play it anymore. It's no longer a game.
Yeah, I mean, final game of the day. Well, no, sorry, final pod of the day. I can understand the conceding at that point. Yeah, that's tough.
And I agree. And actually, I feel for him. It did not feel like a proper game because no person should have that much luck that they could do that much damage on a turn 1 shooting with that much obscurity and shroud sum going on. I do not count that as a game in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah. And I thought my third game against 1,000 Suns would be better, because obviously he could do some real damage. Yes. No, it was just as bad as the Admech. So it was mission 3 again.
Yeah.
Oh, so you have a question?
I was gonna say what list was he running, but you're probably about to tell us.
So he was running the 3 Zangors, one of them carrying the Brayhorn, Sorcerer, Soul Reaper gun, and 2 Rubiks. Very balanced list.
Okay.
Yeah, and so since I know I was going to get 1,000 Suns as the bulk of my threat, I went with the 2 Flate ones and 5 Immortals list.
Yeah.
And this is mission 3, so this is the one where you either score 3 or 1 for primary objectives. So obviously holding the middle was important. Once again, I was able to place a cover so that my Flate ones can move up there safe and sound. And then it was the trade-off firing. I had the initiative and I had the rated model, and so I rapid fire shot it with my Immortal, boosted by comms, at the Soul Reaper cannon because I knew he had to die. If I let him shoot at me, I would be goner.
Yes.
And I killed him. When you consider that I have no multi-damaging, so even with my AB2, he gets a 4-up armor save. Yeah, but it went through, and I killed him because interesting. He was obscured, but he wasn't within 1 inch of the obscuring terrain, so he didn't get the injury bonus.
Yeah.
Yes. And then and of course he shot back with his his sorcerer did get his psychic off and caused a flesh wound, but did not kill me.
Okay. Yep.
And then obviously his Rubric Marine shot back. I continued to shoot back, and I killed another Rubric Marine. I killed one of the Rubric Marines. That was no, I did not kill the Rubric Marine. But let's see what happened. I'm trying to think. Sure. Okay, his Rubric Marine and Rubric Marine were holding the objectives, and he had a sorcerer hiding so he can safely shoot his bolts. I killed a Soul Reaper cannon. His 3 Zangors could not charge. Well, they failed to charge, even though it was with the Brayhorn a 7-inch charge move. So that was quite interesting. And then his Rubric Marines all shot and did nothing. I shot, I did nothing as well. But I killed his Soul Reaper cannon on turn 1, and that helped tremendously.
That is, I think that's 22 points of model there.
Yes,
so yeah.
I think so. Yeah, considering it's strength 5 AP 3, I would have just been shredded apart if he lived.
4 shots, is it?
4 shots, yep.
Yeah, it's big.
Yep, and he's got the heavy perk too, so I was pretty sure he was going to spend 1 command point to make him shoot 5 times instead. So that was turn 1. Turn 2 was where it went to even more down the drains for him, because one of my Flate one, I had the initiative. I managed to get my Flate one to charge out and lock down 2 of his Zangors. And then he and this was a decisive move playoff because he lost the initiative, but he wanted to get a charge it to lock my two flayed ones down, which was a smart move on his part. But I won the decisive move, and so I did that. Then his one Zangor who I did not manage to lock down, he charged over the crate to lock my guy down. So both of our combat guys were engaged. Then once again he did his psychic attack, and he healed me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Necrons. Yeah.
That's Necrons. then went down to the firing phase. I killed both of his Rubik Marines. Pow and pow. And in close combat, I killed the flame one that was charged by the Zangor, didn't die, and killed him in response. My Zangor that did charge killed one of the Zangors, flesh wounded the other, and the flesh wounded guy could not attack, or failed his attack. And suffice to say, that's where he said, I think this is a good game.
So my takeaway from that is that the sorcerer lived. So really, the Thousand Suns won.
Yes, surprisingly, they won a moral victory because their sorcerer lived for the first time.
I mean, the Rubik Marines, they're just dust. They don't count. And the Zangors are like mutants. They're subhumans.
So
we don't care
expendable.
about them. Really, that was a win for the Thousand Suns, I think we can say.
Indeed. I won the battle, but I lost the war.
That's the way it goes. That's why you don't fight against chaos. They get you.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
And so that was your final game of the
afternoon pod of day 2, and because I lost that first game, I did not win my pod, unfortunately, because it was at 14 points and it wasn't high enough to meet the other guy who had almost maxed all his points out. I think it was Elliot again. I forgot who it was.
If he's in your pod, you probably would have lost, and he would have gotten max points. Yes.
No, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure I would have made him earn for it. More importantly, having faced this list once, I'm pretty sure I had a better chance at beating it the second time. Because I mentioned before, I made a formation error and I lost.
Yeah.
And also, the first 3 maps were more forgiving for me. Mission 5 wasn't. So once again, it was a bit. I had a bit of a home court help, But yeah, no, I don't know who won the pod 4. It might have been Elliot, but I know I didn't win that one. So
that's a shame. It would have been cool to see a rematch, see if you could have really put into practice what you learned.
Yes, I think. Yeah, I was really hoping for a rematch, but no, he was assigned to. I think he was assigned to another pod. He wasn't in my pod.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think so. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember everything. It's
very difficult. Gosh, like when I do my battle reports and I talk over about when I did this, I'm usually recording that the next day. I can't remember what I've done.
I know,
yesterday.
right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even though I'm looking at pictures of what I did. I'm like, why did I do that? What an idiot.
Yeah.
Wow, okay, so awesome. So those are all of your games done. I suppose
all of my games for the Adepticon, yes.
Yes, for Adepticon. I suppose the big question is, did you have fun?
Yes. I had a lot of fun. Obviously, the tournament format I felt could have been a slightly bit more different. I felt like I would have loved to see all the best players of their pods face off in a final showdown to get the ultimate best overall player, rather than just say whoever had the most VP. Because if a guy just was matched with 3 newbies, he could easily farm them and just get best overall just from that alone, right?
Yep, indeed. Yep.
Yeah, but no, I enjoyed it tremendously. It was definitely much. I wouldn't say casual, but a much more fun environment than at the LVO, where it was much more serious. Like everyone was here to get the Grand Cup.
Oh, okay, interesting. Nobody else has mentioned that yet. That there was a different vibe or anything. So this was slightly more relaxed.
It's actually I feel this one was slightly more relaxed in relation to LVO, where I felt where you can, I guess you could say, you can feel the energy.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
I mean, there's some energy here, but it's a much more fun energy.
Okay, that's good to know. Good to know. Certainly, I don't think of Adepticon as being a big. Well, no, I suppose it is for the 40k, isn't it? It's a big.
Oh yeah, for 40k, it's super competitive.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. Kill Team is still new, so I guess they're still finding their legs, to make it competitive.
Yes, indeed. No, very true. Very true. Okay, awesome. So it's been a very long time. But I do have one final question for you. which is
Oh, we can keep
purely
talking all day if you want to, but
well, it's half midnight here, so I need to go to bed because I have
ah,
to wake up at 6 a.m.
yes,
for work,
of course. I shan't take your time
unfortunately.
anymore, man.
But
Hmm.
I do have a final question, which is purely for me. As I mentioned, I am taking Grey Knights to Warhammer World. Grey Knights are possibly, because they are max a five-man team, possibly one of the least competitive teams. You know, if you're looking at the grand scheme of the meta at the moment,
Yes,
it's tough.
very.
How do you feel? Like, if you could give a Grey Knight player one piece of advice to deal with Necrons, what would it be? I
Deal with
realise that's a
Necrons.
big question. I realise. Yeah.
It's a very big question. Yes. One piece of advice, huh?
Yes.
Honestly, I feel like I'd have to give several advice, and I have a sneaking suspicion these are more for you than for the players out there.
Oh yeah, no, this is entirely for me. Screw everybody watching this video. I want to know how to win, and no, I don't. I want to know how to not embarrass myself when I play. Basically, if I don't
Hmm.
come last, I'm happy.
Honestly, I think you can. Well, one thing I can definitely say is you can safely ignore Flayed Ones almost, because they don't have armor penetration. Sure, they get 3 attacks, but because they have no AP, you still get your 3 up armor save. Whereas the Immortals, you bet your ass, if a Necron knows he's going against a Grey Knight, he's going to be bringing a lot of Immortals, and with their Strength 5 AP 2, I would argue they have a superior shooting compared to your Strength 4 Rapid Fire 2. You might have volume, but he has quality of shooting. And since there's only 5 of you, he will put down the pain that hard.
Yes, definitely, definitely.
Hmm. I would, in terms of weapons you could bring, I'm almost wondering whether or not you should bring more shooting. Because I know Grey Knights can take up to 2 special guns, yes?
Yeah. It's a bit of an interesting one in that all of our
Yes, you
close
can bring
combat
the.
weapons are D3 damage. So
Yes.
obviously we are a close combat faction. We really don't want to be doing 3 damage to you, which is weird. But
Yes, so
yeah,
the only thing I would not bring is the Demon Hammer, because that's a straight up
yes, of
D3
course,
damage.
three
You're better
damage. Yeah,
off bringing the falchion, the
yeah.
halberd, or the sword, because each one does D3, and maybe stick. And then it depends whether one you want to make that extra attack or you just want an easier time wounding me. So between the two, take your pick. But I think you might be better off with shooting me, like perhaps the Ooh, I'm kind of wondering between the silencer or the side cannon, which one you should pick. Definitely not the incinerator, I feel.
No, why not?
Because then you can have both of your specialist shooters hold the objective and still shoot at me. And then have 3 of your
Yes,
Grey Knights
indeed.
who are
Yeah.
going to be armed with the falchion, the halberd, or the sword, or whatever you pick. And they can be ones that can move forward to hold the third objective and generally hopefully be the distracting force to draw fire away from your fire base while
Mm.
they're pouring fire downrange. That's
Mm.
how I feel would help you the
Oh,
most.
I will clarify. This is arena.
Arena. In which case,
Yes,
sorry, no, you
yes.
definitely want the incinerator.
Okay. I was a
Don't.
bit
I
confused
think
by your advice. I was like, I don't know. That's a bold statement. But
yes,
yeah,
no,
okay.
no.
Yeah.
You want the incinerator, but
Yes.
actually, depending on how the map format is laid out, I will admit I'm still not too familiar with Arena yet. You might. I think one incinerator might be good. I don't think you need 2. That will be an overkill. But definitely get into close combat with Necrons because let's face it, we're not that good. And
Yeah.
definitely take the D3 damage weapons, not the straight up Thunder Hammer, because you don't need 3 injury dice. You just need 1 or 2, maybe 3, but depends on how you roll.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
And
fair enough.
trust in your psychic blast, trust in your psychic powers too,
Yeah.
because that's quality right there.
Oh yeah. Like, I felt so bad. The other day I played against a new player. I was
Mm-hmm.
Grey Knights. He was Heretic Astartes.
Uh
He
huh.
he was new. I effectively wanted him to win, right? However, very very annoyingly, I feel so dirty when I get off my cybolts and it's just take your model off the board because it feels intuitive as the opponent that you should get to roll a dice against that,
Yes.
but you don't, and it's just like, oh, right, and it's really
Yeah.
disheartening.
You should not
Yeah.
be. You should not. You should. You should feel no shame. You're Grey Knights. You need all the benefits you can. You're forever stuck with 5 models. You should have no shame. Let me tell you that
No,
right
no,
now.
no. This was a new player. He made terrible decisions. I wiped the floor with him. I felt bad.
Oh,
Yeah. I didn't intend to. That's the problem. But when you're
no, I can.
killing a model a turn with him not even rolling a dice, it's like it was fine. It
Mm.
was fine. We had a good time. But
Oh, and definitely your tactics. Cybolt ammunition will be pretty good against Necron because then your
yes,
basic bolt gun becomes strength 5 AP 1, right? And that's just the kind of shooting you need against a warrior or an immortal, which they will no doubt bring.
yes, I always forget about that tactic because I'm normally saving my rerolls for combats and for the mortal wound in the cyborg.
And the injury rolls, yes, definitely. But yeah, don't be shy in using offensive tactics. I feel like for Grey Knights, above all, don't think defensively. You have to think offensively because
Oh,
you're
definitely.
not a
Yeah,
defensive army. If you
yeah,
if you go defensive, you'll just die. You do not have the endurance and the models to survive that. Necrons, I'm
definitely.
tough, so I can do that.
One final question in that case before we hang up. Not once did you mention mine shackle scarabs.
Oh, Mind Shackle Scarabs. Yes, I've had a lot
Yes.
of people ask me about that. Why I don't use Mind Shackle Scarab.
Yeah.
Chuck, why don't you use my Sugar Shower? You can take a guns and blah, blah, blah. Okay,
Indeed.
so I'll tell you this right now. First things first, it's 2 command points. That's very hefty. Second thing second, it must be within 6 inches of my model, which means only my flayed one can do that. And third thing, you need to, generally speaking, you kind of want to mind shackle a really good gun. I'm not going to mind shackle a
No,
bolt gun guy. I want to take over a plasma gun or a dark lance or some good guns, right? And then finally, you have to beat their leadership. So if
yes.
it's a leadership 8 guy, you have to roll 9 or higher in order to successfully control them. So you're spending 2 command points for something that statistically only works 15 to 25% of the time. And if that model had done anything like advanced or retreated or anything, you can't shoot with them.
Yes, correct.
So frankly, Mind Shackle Scarab is just so situational. And for something that's not even a guarantee, or has at least a 50% odds of succeeding, not worth my command points. I'm better off taking targeting routines, which is 1 command point, but I get a +1 to my hit rolls. I'm better off spending 1 command point to re-roll my armor save, or and I actually do use this, 2 command points for prime reanimation protocol in case I really wanted someone to survive.
Yes. That makes sense. Can't argue with that.
Overcharge disintegration might have its worth if it wasn't 2 command points just to improve armor penetration by 1.
Yeah, that's 2
It's a
CP
good
for
tactic,
1 AP
but it's too
is
expensive,
tough.
and that's what I feel. What I feel they need to maybe change a bit in the tactics is some of these tactics just don't have use because they're not good, or they're too expensive, or they're both.
Yes. Certainly when I was into my Necrons, keeping in mind that I'm thinking about the tactics from the box set, not just the core rulebook, and from the commander box, they're
Yes, I
actually one of
mentioned.
the most CP hungry factions, I personally feel.
Yeah, no, yeah, like definitely the Necron tactic from their specific box is just frankly a straight up upgrade from the one they have in the books,
Yes.
and I think it's a smart decision for them to say, even though I'm a Necron player, I think it's a smart decision to say that they had excluded all the tactic box set because obviously not every army has that kind of tactic box set yet.
No, indeed. Yeah, I think for fairness, it's acceptable. Um, but equally, I totally get why Games Workshop allows it at their Warhammer World because
Oh,
how
they're allowed that in Warhammer World.
yes,
Wait, is it a narrative player or is it a competitive?
it's competitive. It's arena. We're playing on arena boards, arena only missions, but we are allowed
Oh, and
beta rules and any cards from any released cards.
huh?
Yeah,
Are they going to do that for Nova?
they did not do it for Nova last time,
Okay,
so
I hope that's
I
not the
assume
case, because then
not.
some armies are going to get some pretty big boost for that. I know the Dark Eldar would get one because they have this amazing tactic. For 1 command point in a phase, a model can get a -1 to hit. That's a pretty big deal.
I suspect what might happen is much like in Commanders. We got Commander only tactics. I suspect that elites will have elites tactics, which I'm purely hypothesizing will not be relegated only to elite models, and so will
Mm.
actually fill in some of the boxes, the factions that they never intend to release a box for, possibly Grey Knights.
Maybe.
Just an idea.
But just looking at their history of how a little messy and hectic they've released the box sets, like you know how they released Rogue Trader Out of Order and the Commanders like that. I kind of help but wonder if that might not be the case. Not to be contrary to you,
No,
but just based on
go
how
for it.
messy they've released their box set and all that stuff in a messy order. I don't think they've thought that far.
So obviously we never really know about the nebulous world business side of GW. They keep things very hush hush.
No, exactly.
But my general understanding is that they have to plan these things out, years in advance. Like nothing they do is ad hoc, is my
Hmm.
general understanding. But
Hmm.
then obviously there's all this rumor that actually Rogue Trader was meant to be after Arena, and then that was what, 2 months between those releases? So they must have a
Well,
lot of
it's
play if that's what actually happened.
Well, you have to consider that they were rather underprepared for the popularity of Kill
Oh yeah,
Team
of
too,
course.
right? Like, and that's why I think they might not have. But that's just me. I'm not very familiar with these kind of politics, and I don't try to think too much about it. I will say this though, what they did to the Kroot is insulting, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
About the Kroot, really.
Exactly, it's so
Yeah.
insulting. They whoever wrote that really deserves a smack across the face. Just like Eric, I don't know if Eric told you, he's pretty sure that it was a business decision why they rated that bad because they weren't selling the miniatures anymore for them. So they were like to prevent people from buying more Kroots from other sources because we're not providing them. Let's make Kroot as crappy as possible.
Well, that's a
Yeah, because
conspiracy theory.
you can't buy the Krootox anymore. You can't buy. I don't think you can buy the Kroot Hounds anymore. I think you can still get the Carnivore Squad, but I
Uh,
could be wrong though.
I remember when they released the Kroot in Kill Team and that White Dwarf, they did
Mm-hmm.
go out of stock very quickly on all of that stuff. But let's
Mm-hmm.
find out. No, you can buy it. There you go. It's still all on the site. They were only out of stock temporarily.
Okay, then I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Wait, can you buy the Krootox?
Yep. And the Kroot Hounds. They're all there.
Oh, okay. Oh, then I stand corrected. Then I guess that was wrong assumption. So then why would they make Kroot so poor then? Ugh,
Because they don't know how to write rules.
clearly.
Maybe.
Why can't I be a playtester?
Right.
I'd love to playtest for these guys.
But then equally, I mean, you never really know how much of the feedback actually gets absorbed by GW. Um,
That's true.
because again, they are also very cagey with their playtesters about what they allow their playtesters to say, which makes perfect sense.
I
I
guess.
have
I guess.
got the impression from playtesters that they have actively said this thing is broken, you need to change it, and it doesn't get changed. But then obviously some things do
Yeah.
get changed.
Yeah. No. Sometimes I just kind of want to know what these executive people are thinking, so to speak. You know.
Well,
Uh.
I suspect they're thinking we have a new model, let's keep it broken.
Mhm.
And they will nerf it in the next edition. That's fine.
Yeah, because the thing is, servants of the abyss. I've been
Yeah.
looking at what they can do, and I think they might be they're pretty scary for Arena. I feel.
Yes. They're, well, I think they are an obviously scary army. By
Yes,
which I
it's and
mean, if you just read the rules, you can see how each model is a scary model. It's not subtle. Yeah.
actually no, I'm not too concerned about most of the models. It's really just their rogue psyker and their negavolt cultists. Those two are
Yeah.
the only one that scares me. Every other
Yeah.
model
It's the Negavolt.
in the army, not too important. I
No,
feel,
I agree. I'm not particularly fussed about the Chaos Space Marine, obviously, or the
or the
regular Traitor Guard.
cultists.
Who cares?
Yep, yep,
Um,
or the beastmen.
yeah, I know a lot of people were excited about Beastman because it's basically having a zealot. But isn't a Negavolt Cultist only 9 points or something?
9 points, and they have a 5 up invuln save, and they have feel no pain, and they have 3 attacks at strength 5, which can then proc to 3 more attacks if they roll 6 to hit. Like, how is that not broken? Sure, they have no AP, but that much of out of attack,
Oh,
nothing
that,
survives
yeah,
5
yeah, yeah,
attacks.
yeah.
And aren't
It's
they hitting on
crazy.
3 ups or 4 ups? I forgot.
I can't remember,
Like
but
3
yeah,
ups, right?
they are scary. They are scary.
Yeah, and on a charge, they get a chance to cause a mortal wound. No one does that. Like, holy cow.
That's insane. For
Yeah, and
nine
all of that for
points.
9 points.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
definitely.
no, no. I'm just at this point. I'm just not impressed with their balancing efforts. And I know it's still
Well,
beta rule, so they might
th
change it. It's beta rule, so they might change it, but still.
yeah, I mean, they might change it, but they're allowing it at Warhammer World. So,
Exactly. So once again, not too impressed with some of the executive decisions they're making.
yeah, no, I definitely agree with that in a general sense. But,
Yeah.
Chuck, we're coming up to 3 hours.
Oh,
So,
we should probably stop then. You need to
yes, I
sleep,
think,
man.
yes, I do. I have to wake up in 5. So, yeah. Um,
Yes, yes.
okay, Chuck, did you want to plug anything or send people to a site or anything? Plug it now if you do.
Unfortunately, no. I'm just that Necron guy.
Chuck, the Necron guy. I'll make sure that's your title in the video. Sure.
Oh, I'm sure I can have a much fancier title, but yeah, sure. Let's go with that one.
Okay, Chuck, the Necron guy. Cool. Well, thank you very much for coming on. It's a shame I couldn't catch you after LVO, but I've got you now, and that's great. And like everybody else I seem to interview, you're in the Discord. If people do want to drop by and ask a Necron question, you're there in theory. You're also active on Reddit, of course.
I'm relative. I'm active insofar I like to look. I don't often respond, but when people do send me a message, I do my best to reply. Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. And anyway, do you have any closing thoughts, or did you get it all out in those 3 hours?
Closing thoughts. Soylent Green is people.
All right then. Fair
uh,
enough. Can't argue with
I'm
that.
not known for any good closing.
Okay.
But no, thank you so much for having me, Andrew. It's been a pleasure.
No, pleasure's all mine. Um, and I just hope that everybody that watches the video consumes the content and really enjoys seeing how, again, another person that took a team that people didn't really think of as being particularly competitive managed to, you know, get third in LVO or fourth in LVO, and win two pots, which is very impressive. Okay, well, if you want to say goodbye,
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
and it's a goodbye from me, Glass Half Dead as well. I hope you've all had a great day, and I hope you all continue to have a great day. If you've liked what you've heard, leave Chuck a message below, and I will make sure he comes back and reads it. Okay, goodbye, everyone. Have a great day.